Rua toru morena koutou. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning's externally funded projects committee meeting of Kaipura District Council. It's a beautiful shiny day all over Kaipura today. There's not a cloud in the sky, and so on this Bluebird Day, Kaipura District Council is meeting online in this Zoom format. Rather than in person, so no one has to travel. That's part of our commitment to climate change. Was one of the decisions by the council here regarding this committee, was to reduce the number of kilometres that the elected members have to travel. So that's us for today. So for today, I'm going to open today's meeting with a karakia. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapu pounamu te moana, hei hoa rahi mā tātou i te rangi nei. Araha atu, araha mai, tātou I a tātou katoa. Thank you. For today, we, what am I saying? We're seeking apologies at this point for today, and we have one apology, which is from Councillor Joyce Paki. And are there any other apologies? No further apologies. Thank you. Thank you. So I'd like to move the apology of Councillor Joyce Paki be received and accepted, and Councillor Curnow is seconding that. Thank you. So is there any commentary here? No? All right. Thank you. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Just for the avoidance of doubt, the attendees today, I'm going around the screen here, Councillor Delavaris Woodcock, Councillor Curnow, Councillor Wethy, Councillor Vincent, Councillor Wilson Collins, Councillor Wills, and myself as the Mayor. And so we have an unrecorded absence from Councillor Larson for today. Right, so we're moving on with the item number 1.3, which is the confirmation of the agenda for today. So I'd like to move the confirmation of the agenda as written, and I'm seeking a seconder for that. Councillor Wilson Collins, thank you. Is there any commentary? No commentary, thank you. So we're putting this to the vote now, confirming the agenda. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Item number 1.4, conflict of interest declaration. Councillors, are there any conflicts of interest regarding today's decisions or matters? No conflicts of interest. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we'll move on into our agenda to section 2. Councillor Larson has just arrived and joined the meeting. So Tracy, if you could please take note of that. Thank you. We'll move on to the confirmation of the open minutes from the 20th of April externally funded projects committee meeting. And so I'm seeking a mover for these as a true and accurate record. Councillor Curnow, thank you. And a seconder here, please. Councillor Wilson Collins, thank you. Is there any commentary on these minutes? None. Thank you. All right, we're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Right, so we're moving on to the first of our substantive items for today, which is the Kaihu Valley Trail project update. And so for this item, we have a recommendation here to note the Kaihu Valley Trail project update report, and I'm seeking a mover for that and a seconder, please. A mover for that. Councillor Delavaris Woodcock, thank you, and a seconder here. Councillor Curnow, thank you. Right. So our presenter here today is Greg Monteith for this item. Morena, Greg.
Morena, thank you, Worship.
Top of the morning to you.
Just to, I suppose, take the report as read. I think the report covers most things. Obviously, there's a few amber risks in there that are sort of been continuous on the reports that we've been going through. I think we did have a question prior to the meeting of where we're sitting with the dock concession. It's obviously still being worked through with dock, going through their due diligence, doing the property reports and historical sort of information they're trying to gather. Obviously, you will appreciate, I suppose, it's quite a complex sort of process they've got to go through in terms of negotiating and not negotiating, but talking with landowners, understanding the history of the land. And obviously, we'll have to go through a process ourselves of negotiating and consulting with the landowners if we do get the concession. So it is progressing and we're moving forward with that, or Doc is moving forward with that and keeping us updated on it. From our perspective as a project team, obviously, those upper sections, obviously, we won't be looking to construct them in this this round of finance or of funding. We will continue to seek approval and consult with the adjacent landowners and try and work out a route and get agreement of a route and a design. But the intent is, I suppose, now to really focus on the SP4, 3 and 5 areas. We are continuing to consult with Kaihu Hunga Marae. We've had some good meetings with them and site visits to I suppose just get a way forward with the lower section, and we sort of have that, and we are progressing the design and the application to Kiwi Rail to construct that section in front of the marae along the Kiwi Rail section. Yeah, and we've still got to then work through the section through the Europa, and we've had some meetings with that and options, so we're optioneering that at the moment and what that could look like. Kaihu Hunga Marae are happy for us to continue to go back into SP5 with the goodwill of obviously that we're going to progress with the section outside the marae and keeping them informed and consulted of what we do at the Europa section. So yeah, so we're putting the plan together of all the sections. Obviously, you will see from that of what we can actually do this rough funding round. So we're looking at that, and we have raised with MB obviously the intent to put an application in forward for an extension of time, but we're just from October, but we're just working through the details of that and coming up with a plan to put to them. And that's probably us up to date. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Curnow and then Councillor De La Varis Woodcock. Thank you for questions for clarification.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for that update, Greg. Just one question. You talk about that the intent now is to focus on sections 3, 4 and 5 in this funding round. Was the intention to include sections 1 and 2 in this funding round, or was that always considered to be a second stage?
I think it was the program was quite fluid in terms of where we were sitting and the options that we had, and I suppose consulting with landowners and depending on getting agreement where we could progress first. And I think it was always the project's team intent maybe to ideally they would like to start up on that upper section and sort of come down just purely on the location of it and possibly the benefits of its natural sort of beauty on that section. And obviously, if we progress through these things, and obviously working through the consultation is quite complex and it takes some time, it's sort of come to light then obviously with the timelines and the process we've got, it wouldn't be possible. So it's just to continue on with the consultation, continue on with the design and try and resolve those issues, but actually just then focus on the lower sections. We sort of had been doing that as well, but I suppose it's now just making that formal and putting that request through to TMB to say, okay, this is where we're at now, and here's the reasons why, and we do possibly seek an extension of time.
So does that mean then that there is the option for us to do sections 3, 4 and 5 perhaps to a higher standard than we were intending to?
No, I think the standard will stay the same. Obviously, we're probably incurring more costs on the lower section of what we had initially envisaged with the station road. Obviously, I think historically we'd sort of assumed incorrectly that we go along the road, but that sort of changes. There are probably additional costs on there. And I think we're looking now to possibly build a few more bridges with the plan of going forward in the SP5 and another one in SP4, along with the bridge we're currently about to award, the Ahi Bridge. So yeah, so it's just putting that plan together and putting it forward, and then obviously what we don't do then feeds into the business case that's being developed for the other parts of the track, that feeds into the wider sort of Northland track. That then we'll hope to look for opportunities to seek funding.
And is there funding sort of out there for future sections, or are we sort of we're just going to have to park where we're at this point?
I think it's always fluid in terms of it. It certainly ties into the GPS and.
Sorry, Greg, I'm not. Oh,
sorry. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. It's certainly cycle trails and tourism in that area. It certainly ties into some of the government's sort of pushes for mode shift and different things. So it's there is the opportunity, but it's just what funding is available, and we just take those opportunities when they come. But there's currently nothing specifically that we're targeting, but it's just a process that we're going through, obviously with the business case, and then seeing how we can seek out opportunities for that and have conversations with potential funders.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Delavaris Woodcock, and then Councillor Vincent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Greg.
Morning.
I'd like to ask a question about the adjacent landowner dispute that DOC is resolving. And is it the section up near Donnelly's where there is mature native bush, and I've heard it called the magic part. Could you confirm whether the dispute that's about the trail is in that part of the trail?
Yeah, it would be up in SP1 and SP2 where we're seeking the DOC concession. I think there's a neighbour then obviously that is has concerns raised with that and raised concerns with DOC through their solicitor sort of thing. So just of what that would mean and their interest in the land as well. So they've got to go through their due diligence and work with that. There's probably historic issues as well in terms of where the rail trail had gone and how that was developed 100 years ago, and how that sits and hasn't been used in a long time, and the proximity of that to existing landowners and properties, that it's quite sensitive, I suppose, and close. So we have to work through that and work through with those landowners to see how we can resolve some of their concerns as well. And DOC, I suppose, is looking at that as well, making sure that they've done their due diligence in terms of the ownership of that land and the rights of themselves, I suppose, to be able to grant those things. So just so if they are indeed challenged, that they've gone through the due diligence.
So what I'm hearing you say is that there's historical and cultural issues that need to be resolved.
Yeah.
Would I be correct in saying that it's likely that everything will be resolved given the right amount of time and diplomacy?
I suppose it's always hard to answer that question. I suppose we do just have to work through the process and engage, and I suppose talk to those landowners and see where we go with it. I wouldn't be able to say hand on heart that yes, it would be, but I'd hope that we could work through that and it will all resolve itself. But we just have to, I suppose, work through that and go through the journey with those adjacent landowners and just to see where we can get to.
Thank you. And Greg, will NTA and your role here, I'm pleased to have you here, directly connected to the council. Will you be pursuing or following through this project?
We'll certainly, complete to the funding that we've got currently from MB and bringing that forward, taking that to a conclusion. Obviously through the NTA, we will certainly, and with KDC, we will certainly be seeking funding applications or opportunities through our asset team and see where they lie. So it's, yeah, so they're currently involved with us in the discussions that we're having, and part of the business case team putting that plan together of the future trial.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Morena, Greg.
Morning.
I have a little daisy chain of questions, I suppose. I'll give them to you all at once and then see where we land. It's in the same area as Councillor Delavaris Woodcock has spoken, I think. Like, any idea of how much longer this dock process is likely to take? Do they have a resourcing problem with dealing with this? And also, is there anything that we could do to help expedite the process?
I don't know. I suppose obviously internal resources of DOC. I'm not sure. I do know obviously that they're certainly working through the process and making us aware of that. They do have to do their own due diligence in terms of property reports and going back through and checking records, and so there is a process there. And I understand they're working with the property group to do that. Yeah, so it'd be nice if it was straightforward, but it's with a lot of these property issues, they never are. So it does just take time, and that's the reality of I suppose one trying to work through those property issues, and then talking to and consulting and engaging with adjacent landowners. They're certainly keeping us informed. We're obviously offering up any assistance that we can. So it's and in terms of going out and engaging now with the adjacent landowners. I think we previously, as a project team, has sort of put that on hold just to see where DOC's position would be. But obviously now we're looking at that and bringing that back now to see if we can go out now and sit down with some of the adjacent landowners, talk about the project, and just to see the concerns and see how we can help assist in that area.
Okay, thank you. So just quick question from me coming in at exactly that same point as well. So if you like, who has ownership of the project regarding trying to get these bits done? If you like, who's the kind of project owner here, Greg?
Well, the project obviously sits with myself and the team of doing that. We've made an application, obviously, for those areas for DOC, and that's their process. I suppose the same way if we made an application for a consent or anything to KDC, we'd have to just work through that process and the requirements of that. With this, obviously, DOC is just working through their internal processes and doing their due diligence. We've offered any assistance we can to help with that, but ultimately, I suppose, we've made the application. We offer assistance where we can, but we just have to let DOC, I suppose, work through their process, and then once we have a decision on that or an outcome, whatever that is, then we can start to progress and move forward in those areas.
Okay, thank you. That's clear. Thank you. Councillor Wills, then Councillor Wethy. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Greg. Before I speak, it's obvious I'm an affected landowner on this trail, but regarding, there's been a constant focus on DOC and their processes, but can you speak to the fact that there's actually legal challenges to the ownership of that trail above Kaihu?
There has been, with one of the property owners, raised through their solicitors of that's one of the issues that they have raised through to DOC. They have, I suppose, just to keep us informed as well, given us the letter that they've sent to DOC on that process. So there will certainly be a challenge on some of those sections on the top end, I believe, from some of the adjacent landowners who, so that hence why I suppose that DOC and going through, they need to be 100% sure of what they're doing and what they're given permission for, and can they give permission in that process. So that's, I suppose, part of that it is taking a bit longer. That some of those comments and challenges that have been put forward by a landowner, adjacent landowner, that they just need to work through to understand their position and are they in a position to be able to grant.
Yeah, I guess I asked that question because I just for information for council, in the fact that I understand it's been challenged under the fact that it was originally taken under the Public Works Act, and as it no longer is used for its original use, that's the basis for that legal challenge. I just wanted to mention that, so it's not necessarily a doc process, that they actually may have to prove that they have a right of control or ownership. Anyway, moving on. Would it be a fair comment that on the lower sections that 2 of them are involved, one at Station Road and one up at Parori, are also not engaging and allowing the track to proceed along the existing rail line or previous rail line?
The Tiho Hungamarai, we're certainly at the lower end of Station Road, we are engaging, consulting with them. We have agreed a route of where we can go and where they would like it to go, and along the rail corridor rather than on the road. And we've agreed to that, and we are looking at putting that application into Kiwi Rail. Obviously, I touched on before just the bit outside the Europe, how we have walked the track with them to see then the options of putting it on the Kiwi Rail site as opposed to the road site. So we are certainly going through that, and I think we're in a much better space now in engagement than we were historically. So I think it's that bottom section is certainly looking a lot better.
Sorry, Greg, I'm not putting you on the spot, but I was talking to Section 4.
Section 4.
There's a refusal to allow it to proceed along the railway track.
Section 4, we're again engaging, and we are going through that process with the various Marais and talking. The last engagement, I think that.
Sorry, Greg, I understand that, and I am putting you on the spot a wee bit, and you are doing a great job, and so I appreciate that. But my understanding is there's a blanket refusal to allow it to continue on the railway track on Section 4 past the Urapa.
The team is working with, and they were looking at the option of following the river along that Section 4. And I suppose the suggestion coming from the Marae of that was their preferred route, and they put that up as an option. So we are looking at that, and obviously dealing with landowners and the Marae and the affected parties to see around that option. And I suppose that we have had a number of meetings with the Marae, I believe, to look at those options and work that through. At the moment, I don't think it's been locked in, but it's certainly the preferred option, I think, of the Marae.
I'll stop there. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Councillor Withy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, hi, Greg. Look, just following on, I'm glad you're making some progress with Te Huhanga Marae and looking at this alternative route through, but obviously relies on Kiwi Rail giving some sort of agreement to allow the track to go down on their land. But I get back to the comment here where it says that obviously the Marae do not want cyclists to use public road in front of them, but I get back to the legal definition of a public road, and I'm, from a council point of view, are we going to be legally exposed at all? Because a public road is there for access of pedestrians, cyclists, cars, 40-ton logging trucks, and it seems to me that if we find that Kiwi Rail do not agree, where do we go from there? Because legally, I would have thought we're still entitled, or anyone is still entitled, to ride a bike down that public road. So while it may not be the preferred choice of the Marae, at the end of the day, if that's the only impediment to getting the trail underway, we may have to go and take a more legalistic view of where the track should go. Would that be fair?
We've certainly been, again, having the discussions with that, and I suppose in that engagement is trying to understand the issues and the concerns raised by Te Huhanga Marae and under working with, and I suppose making sure we maintain that relationship as well of where we're going in the long-term relationship with Te Huhanga Marae. In respect of Kiwi Rail, we certainly have had a conversation, and they have given provisional approval to go through there. They don't see any issues with it. We just have to go through the formal process. We've told them what we want to do. They've already acknowledged there will be dispensations that they will need to grant, and they've accepted that. So from our perspective, it's very much nearly a formality now to go through the process and apply for that section. Obviously, the section of the Europe might be, we still have to go through that process as well. But at the Marae, we're reasonably confident that we will get approval from Kiwi Rail. They've given provisional sort of approval. So yeah, it does, and I appreciate the comment as a public role, but it's I suppose it's just trying to address those cultural concerns and the issues raised by the marae that we do need to be respectful of and try to, and if there is an option to work through, then yeah, we're certainly look to see if we can do that.
Yeah, they haven't advised how many cyclists equate to a logging truck going past the marae.
No.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
Thank you, elected members. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you, Greg. You may stand down. Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to go to Councillor De La Varas Woodcock for the opening statement here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My statement is going to be a plea to all of the community to get behind this project. So just pointing out that the river section at Rotu that offers the opportunity for blue-green infrastructure. That is where you access riparian portion or place, and you can then plant riparian plants to offer filtration and improve the health of the river. So that's a huge benefit for the Māori, for the spirit of the Kaihu River, which flows through this trail environment and landscape. The Ministry of Business and Innovation has done a study, and that has been released on the 14th of April, and it points to the data of 1 year's findings of the economic and social well-being benefits of participation in the 22 Great New Zealand cycle trails. So in that year to year end June 21, there were 2.19 million trips on bikes and foot on those 22 great rides, and they equate a total of $11 million of health benefits for those using the trails, because the people that use them reported an improved sense of well-being and mental health. Cycle trail users brought an estimated direct economic contribution to the regions of more than $950 million. And the cycle trail managers and their volunteers planted 25,000 native trees in that year. I want to tell a story of walking in England before I had my first son, so 24 years ago. And as a walker in the Pennine Way, it was the most light-footed approach to travel and tourism that I have engaged with. And I left only my footprints, and I got to see the most beautiful parts of that isle, of that of England up there. And there are moors and marshes. And as far as the landowners of the Pennine Way that has been going now for 50 years, they have come to a delightful accommodation with the users of the trail. And I imagine that looking ahead in the future, this period of diplomacy and uncertainty will be something that we look back on, because the Kaihu Valley Trail is an access way, it's an opportunity for all of us to enjoy the best parts of our beautiful country without, for free. And in society today, where there's so much inequality, and to have joy and simple pleasures is quite hard for ordinary people. This is, to me, just, I cannot see anything but the best of of it. And so I want to also say that I'm really pleased to have Greg and NTA take ownership of this project, because it's our project. It's a Kaipura project, and it's also one for the whole of Northland, because of course the aim of the trail is to actually create a ride and an access way, a walking way, a cycle way from Mangaturoto all the way to the south of the Hokianga. So this is a big project, and I wish it all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we go to Councillor Curnow for a seconding statement? Thank you.
Yes, so I want to echo Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock's sentiments about the benefits to those who would use the path, but I also want to stress that it is of huge benefit for the people of the area and the people of Northland. This project stands to create significant jobs and alternative business and revenue opportunities for the people alongside the trail, and so there are some real benefits on both sides of the equation here. Having said that, I do understand the concerns that people are having around this. It does represent significant change. It's a change that probably has lain in wait for quite some time, because that rail trail has been there for decades and generations, with that innate opportunity sort of built into it. So having said that, I do understand those concerns, and I really want to applaud the officers and the members of the community who are engaging and continuing to engage in the discussions about how we make this work in a way that benefits all. Yeah, I guess all we can do is keep moving forward with this in the best way we can, trying to bring everyone with us rather than perhaps sort of stepping on people as we go. When I was a teenager, my father once reminded me, be careful who you step on the way up, because they will be there for you on the way down. So I do feel strongly that we need to continue with this engagement and try to bring everyone with us so the benefit is realizable for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further statements? Councillor Wilson-Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Greg, for your presentation. I'm obviously all for this project, have been and will continue to be. I don't think that's any secret. I just wanted to today thank the team, thank Greg and everyone on the ground who's working with the affected landowners on the trail, including the marae, and trying to manage those cultural sensitivities that come with encouraging a large number of people to pass through and next to wahitapu sites. I think it's very important that that's managed correctly, and it sounds like the team is trying to do their best with that. I understand that other landowners have already negotiated alternative routes off the original plan. So I'm very happy to see that that all the affected parties to this trail are actually being treated with the same respect. So thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So that's 3 people speaking in support of this item. Are there any people, elected members, who would like to speak against the noting of this report? No. So under our standing orders, so this gives us an opportunity now to go straight to the decision on the item, rather than everyone needing to speak here, just to keep the meeting moving along. Is everyone happy with that? Okay, thank you. Yes, right. So that'll be the approach. Thank you. So we're going to the vote now on the noting of this report. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Greg. And also, again, in the chair, Greg, welcome back for our next item, which is the Mangify Shared Path project update. So I'm seeking a mover for this, Councillor Wethy, thank you. And a seconder here, Councillor Curnow, thank you. So, Greg, kia ora.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, just take the report as read. We things are not really. We are just finishing off stage one, really, that planting and some of the crossings and intersections and raised tables. So it's just the last couple of percent, 5% of that stage one project. We're just tidying up. We are obviously in the process of tender process of stage two to get that moving. The team's currently going through that process at the moment and hope to have some good news on that sometime soon and to be able to get that section moving. But yeah, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Wethy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one, just for accuracy, Greg. Under the activities going forward, this month's activities, intersections, you're talking about start next section of work from the Mangify Artists Gallery to Leslie Street. Is that Leslie Street or meant to be Inslee Street?
We are doing a section to connect the cycle trail that we bought or built a number of years ago down past the towards the Tara Road. So there is a section in there I know the team are trying to connect into. So that's possibly what we're referring to there. But I would just need to check the wording on that and come back to you.
We just need to check. Now, the other question, just to quickly, and that is relating to, we've got obviously the NRC consent, and this is for the boardwalk and bridge in the stage 2. And we're still waiting for the draft conditions of the KDC consent. You know, that's largely within our own control. Is there any reason why we're being, you know, still waiting for that? Because this has been the comment for quite some time now in the reports we've been receiving.
Yeah.
I would have thought the major risk was not was waiting and not receiving on time the NRC consent, but they look as though they've beaten us to the post on this one.
Yeah, I will have to follow up just to the details on that, and I suppose maybe the complexities maybe within our consent possibly with KDC. I will. I know that obviously they're under-resourced and sort of short-staffed at the moment, and using external resources and consultants to help sort of backfill some of the load. But I can certainly go away and find out a bit more detail and report back.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Curnow, question for clarification.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Mayor, and also to Greg. Just the sections through the Mangify Community Park, could you give us just an update on that? Are we still on schedule to start around mid-May? Because I get a sense that every time I ask, it's about to start, and I just want to know if it is actually going to start and how long it may take.
Again, I'd have to go back and find out the exact details, but the intent was that is part of phase 1 and should be done as part of the phase 1 work. So yeah, so that will be in this last sort of 5-10% that we're sort of tidying up. So the intent is to get that work underway. Yeah, but I can certainly come back with more details.
That would be great, just so we can keep people in the loop as to where that's at. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a question, Greg, and it's on page 23 of the agenda. I can't give you a page for the report. Sorry, and it is regarding in the open project risks and the piling works for phase 2 in the ferry turn restricted area. So it's the bottom of that table.
Yeah.
And it says here, NRC have granted resource consent. This is, sorry, linked very much to what Councillor Wethy was just saying as well. This and saying here, tender has indicated this may not be an issue regarding the piling and the ferry turns, and this will be confirmed on 27 April when the tender closes. Is this linked to how you introduced this item, which is that the tenders have been received and they're being processed right now, or could you speak to that? Because the indication here is This will be confirmed on the 27th of April when the tenders are received, rather than this will be information to be further considered from the 27th of April.
Yeah, I suppose I've got to be careful because we still are in that tender process. But I suppose the comment was really, I suppose, relating to the timelines, thinking if we had the tender awarded, then we would have that program and clarification of when we could actually get started and awarded that contract. It is just taking us a bit longer to go through the tender process and I suppose negotiate with the preferred supplier. And then try to get through with that and just sort of sorting out that sort of detailed process. So it's we once we sort of get a supplier on board, then we'll have more certainty of timeframes, and can we then meet that with as little risk as possible, or is there some element of risk that we have to manage in there and go back to NRC?
Okay, thank you. So that will definitely be a piece for update for the next meeting here. Okay, thank you. Good luck with that. Thanks. Are there further questions? No further questions. Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Wethy as the mover here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, look, the stage one, I think, is in its final pieces of completion at present, and to be fair, I think it's been a remarkably successful project right the way through, and we're seeing the benefits already. The amount of traffic that I see going up and down the completed shared path is quite remarkable. People have welcomed it and are using it, and if what they're doing on what's already completed continues on the stage 2 and 3, then this is going to be the success that we all thought it would be when we recommended this process for consideration. I guess my only concern at this stage is any delays, and this is why I'm focusing on the KDC consent conditions for the stage 2, which is the bridge in particular. It's absolutely imperative, in my opinion, that we get the piling completed before the ferry turn nesting season. So any suggestion that KDC's conditions that they have, is going to provide any sort of delay or hold up and put that under pressure is something we should be focusing on now, not waiting until it becomes a real red light in this project timeframe. So I would urge you, Greg, to keep a very close eye on that and get, once the successful tender has been awarded, that they focus on getting those piles in. Once the piles are in, then I understand from what Tim has previously said, you'll be clear to put the above ground part of the bridge in. It's the disruption to the harbour bed where there is an area for ferry turn foraging not too far away. That is the concern about getting it done before the end of August. So please keep that in mind. It would be a disaster for this stage 2 and the bridge to be delayed till well into 2023, simply because we missed out on that particular condition. So my comment would be, and we won't get any thanks from the community, all the good work and all the brownie points we've scored on stage 1, I think would probably go out the window if we suddenly said, sorry, we're going to have to sit on our hands for another 6 or 8 months until the ferry turns finish nesting. So please keep that very clearly in mind. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Anna Curnow, seconder.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just want to echo the comments around how impressive the work to date is. It really is going to be quite the asset for the community once complete. I do want to just touch back on the park section, and why that's important is that there's been quite a lot of planting done in the park and weed removal. The weeds are now coming back with a vengeance and threatening to drown out the thing that's been done, and the community are keen to get back in and do some more planting, but obviously they can't while a lot of that space is a work area and hazardous. So if we can expedite that section through the park so that then the community can get in and start working on with officers on the planting and the weed management, that would be great. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there further statements, elected members? Quick statement from me. This project is making great progress. Since our last meeting, of course, we've had the confirmation of the extra section of the funding has been confirmed. So that's absolutely brilliant. So the overall project has increased to 11.45 million here regarding the funding. So this is on a great scale. And at a personal level, I've taken my bike with the dog on the backpack along the shared path, and it's an absolute joy to ride on. And the alignment and the road surface on that shared path is a total pleasure. So I love doing that. It's one of the great things to be able to do, one of the great new things to be able to do in Kaipura district. And we're doing it already. We haven't even finished. So carry on, Greg, and great thanks to you and the team, particularly Tim Manning, who's project manager here as well in this space. And so carrying on and looking forward very much to seeing the completed story regarding phase 2 with the beautiful and spectacular bridge it's going to be across the creek. So carry on, I say. That's 3 statements for. Is there a statement against at all? Is there anyone else who's needing to make a statement here? No, all right, thank you. So we'll revert. Councillor Wethy, do you need a closing statement?
No, nothing further for me. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. So we're putting this to the vote now, the noting of this. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So moving on to the Unsealed Road Network. And I'm seeking a mover here for the noting of this report. Councillor Vincent, thank you, and seconded by Councillor Wilson Collins. Thank you. So we have here again, Greg. Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, take the report as read. Just to note, works are continuing, and as in the report, we are still on track to complete at the end of the May. These works, everything is going along, and no problems been raised through the contractors or through the staff. So yeah, it's all progressing really well. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Curnow, question.
Mayor, thank you. Yeah, I've just got a question. I'll sort of preface it by last week I went out for a drive with one of our constituents around the Whenua-Nui, Rehia, Toka area, and he showed me the state of those roads, and they are indeed in a pretty poor condition. So I'm just wondering how are we managing to balance this additional workload with our existing business as usual work? Because it felt a little bit like maybe some things are getting left behind. Are you able to comment on that?
Yes, we have engaged. I think we've got 3 contractors implementing the heavy metaling program, and 2 of them obviously are not our maintenance contractor. One, Venti, is doing some work on that, but they're not using the maintenance crews as such. I think they've brought in an extra resource to undertake that work. Business as usual, obviously, we will continue now. We'll be ramping up the work on our Unsealed network now that we're coming into that time of year of April, sort of May. So the team has been going around doing their inspections of that and planning work, and the routine grading now, and work is to start on those other roads that we haven't gone through with the heavy melting program, just as business as usual is what we would call. So yeah, we are certainly looking at that, and there is the resource to do that, but it's not something that will get left behind.
Yeah, I was reflecting on it and wondering whether this additional work, which requires lots more trucks carting lots more roading metal, is actually also creating additional damage, which our business as usual maybe isn't adequate to keep up with? Would that?
I don't think so. I think it's obviously the business as usual is just going around, and a lot of time the unsealed roads, we don't do a lot of work on the roads in the summer. So it's our time is now, I suppose, in those shoulder seasons to get them set up for winter and get them set up for summer. So I don't believe it would cause us too much problems with the extra trucks on there doing that. It's just, yeah.
All right. Okay. I'll leave that with you anyway. Thank you.
If I could just come in there, Greg, just on this point which Councillor Curnow's raised, would it be, the purpose in this externally funded projects committee meeting is to separate, if you like, all of the special money from the business as usual operations of the council, so that we have clear sight of the whale, if you like, which the council is swallowing with all of these special funding opportunities. Would it be possible, along the lines of what Councillor Curnow is saying, to have a kind of business as usual report come through to the full council about what is going to be taking place, what is planned for our roading network, our normal business as usual, if you like, which is would be a parallel report, if you like, to this, or a twin kind of report to this report that we're saying, but by the way, there's all of this normal work that's going on. And we'd be able to get that rather than just after the fact reporting on what has occurred in the last quarter, but actually a bit of a forecast on the direction. Yeah,
I can certainly have a chat with Bernard and see if we can pull something together for the maybe not the next council briefing, but possibly the one after that.
I think that would be I think that would be very helpful. Thank you. Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock, question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Greg, for your provision of this reporting. So the questions I have is the photos supplied with the report shows the rip and reseal approach in action, and there's pictures of very brown looking aggregate being laid upon the road pavement. Would that be correct to say that that is the Page Green innovation method?
That's correct, yeah. So with the Page Green, obviously we've got a higher clay content just with the grading of that, and that's the intent, and I suppose the Centre of Excellence in bringing that out. So yeah, there you will see, yeah, a higher sort of clay content with the metal that we're running in.
And so that's the part that I want to kind of get into the detail of the rip and reseal approach, and you're doing this pilot with the Page Green. How is NTA analysing and collating that data, and how will it be used for the whole network, Unsealed network, going forward? So how are you using this pilot work from the Unsealed externally funded project to take that knowledge and that expertise forward?
Yeah, well, there are also the three, Andy and Bernard, working on that Centre of Excellence. They do have a process of, and I'll try to talk to it, but obviously I don't have the same detail that they would, but of the process of how we construct those roads. And it's part of it is the Page Green, part of it is obviously the shape of the road, part of it is then the drainage of the road. So there's a whole sort of suite of tools that sit into when we talk about the heavy metaling program that we're putting in, and changing those best practice, but bringing in sort of the best practice and making sure that has been run through. There is a process of going back and checking of how we're designing these roads and learnings from that, and being able to ground penetrating radar to actually understand how much metal loss over the coming months, years, sort of thing going through. So it's a continuous sort of review and check process to see how they're performing as well. The learnings obviously from that, where we're sharing with low volume roads and talking to the industry nationally, and the teams presenting on that, we're bringing the learnings from here and putting into WDC and FNDC roads as well, to bring that centre of excellence to that as well. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, just one last one. Is Kaipura the only, or Northland the only part of New Zealand that's actually using the page green approach or aggregate?
I don't know. We're certainly, obviously, we've got a big emphasis on pushing on that, and that change of how we've sort of done things, and then being really specific on the grading of the page green. I'd have to go away and check to see if there is other districts using it. I'd be surprised if there wasn't, but I'd have to double check with that.
That could be interesting for next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Greg, I have a further question for you, which is on page 13 of the report, or page 44 of the total document. In the table of the roads that are being beneficiaries of this special PGF money. So I'm waiting for you to catch up there. So
right.
Page 13 or page 44, there's a large number of the parts of Poto Road, which to my eye seem to be the far end of Poto Road rather than the near end. So this is beyond where the Ari Road ceiling stops.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, and what we're seeing here is either not started or design as a phase, yeah, and the but if you like, the full PGF treatment is proposed for Poto Road. Phase 2, what was going to be phase 2 of the ceiling. Can you just explain, now that Poto Road phase 2 is no longer as a ceiling project being a dedicated item here, can you just talk more into the detail of this location, of all of this work, which is kind of not started or is in design phase? Is this going to happen? When does this happen? It was going to be in season 1. It hasn't happened. Can you just fill in some of the gaps here for us? Thanks.
Obviously, Poto 2 is, it came into the piece a wee bit later, obviously, because we thought we would be sealing that, and then some of the uncertainty of are we not, and to hear back from MB of could we use the money for part of it, could we not? So there was a bit of a delay in that. It has now obviously come back into the program list on here. I would need to check with Bernard and the team just exactly of funding of, is it falling into the funding of the MB funding, or does that fall into business as usual funding and following on from that? My understanding is that it should be part of the MB funding, and we've brought that back into the program as a priority road. So it should be MB funded through this process and into May. But I would have to double check just with that with the team.
Okay, thank you. That would be good, because there's a substantial number of kilometers here that are proposed. So it almost warrants special treatment within this report that you're presenting on an ongoing basis, because there's 10 kilometers just on one road. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Elected members, are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you, Greg. Thank you. So Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is one of the greater success stories in relation to all of the externally funded projects that we have. It seems to be running pretty much to budget, and if anything, ahead of time in terms of the program. So it's really good, and I have no hesitation in endorsing the noting of this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Wilson-Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just a commendation really to the fact that this report seems to consistently have green traffic lights throughout the months as we move ahead. So yeah, it is a relief to have at least one project that we can have all good warm fuzzies about. So Yeah, well done, and we look forward to seeing the next steps. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there a further statement here in support of this? Statement from me then is that just echoing what we've just heard, this report has been consistently our top performer in the list of the projects that we've been considering, which is great testament to the work of the Northern Transportation Alliance, and also the fact that Kaipura District Council is basically a roading company. So we know this, and this is what we know. So thanks, Greg, and thanks to your team, to Bernard, our Kaipura roading manager out there, and to Kurt, who had early oversight here as well, and to the whole project that's been running in the background right through. So congratulations, everyone. Carry on. And the feedback that I'm getting from the members of the community who travel on these special page green surfaced roads is consistently excellent. The feedback is people are saying, wow, this is a real change for us. So here's hoping that that lasts, and here's hoping that we don't go hooning on the roads and ripping up the surface and or having rally cars running over it or things like that in the future. So because it will be delicate, but also very robust as well. So here's Godspeed to all this work. Thank you. Is there any elect member who would like to speak against noting this report? Okay, all right, thank you. So we'll go, Councillor Vincent, would you like a closing statement?
Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so we're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. So at this point, elected members, would you like to break? We've been going for 1 hour. Would you like to break for 10 minutes? Yes, so we'll break now. We'll resume actually at 10:40 rather than 10:45, 10:40 a.m., 8 minutes from now. Thank you. Ka kite. All right, that's 10:40 a.m. Hope everyone had a nice wee break there. Just as we are starting here, we're going to be going next to the Poto Road Phase 1 update, which is decision number 6 here, or item number 6 on the agenda. The Poto Road Phase 1 project update. But just before we do that, I have an apology for Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock regarding the process in today's meeting here. When we shorten the speech making parts, and we have a provision for elected members to, for the chair to have only 3 people speaking for and then call for 3 against rather than everyone speaking. It's a process when people are broadly in alignment with something, and in order to expedite the meeting. There is an opportunity for the speaker who is moving that to close off the item at the end with a right of reply, even though no one else has spoken to it. I apologise to Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock for having omitted to do that regarding the item on the Kaihu Valley Trail. And I hope that the absence of that did not distort the outcome of that item for you, Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock. So if you would like a closing statement here, you're welcome to provide that now if you would like. But certainly the decision is still made here and was made. So, but that apology is to you. It was absolutely inadvertent because it's been a while since we've done that shortened version of the voting process here.
Thank you for that apology, Mr. Mayor, and no thank you. I do not need to make a reply.
Thank you. Thank you. So will be working hard to keep to our normal processes here. Thank you. Thank you. So carrying on here with our meeting, and the next item here, Poto Road Phase 1 project update. For this item, I'm seeking a mover for this. Councillor Wills, thank you, and a seconder for this item, Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock. So thank you. So, and to present this, we have Greg Monteith again. Thank you. Kia ora, Greg.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, not much to note in this, just that take the report as read. The only thing really to note, we have had our, not blessing, but our opening for the road, which went very well. And the only thing outstanding really is just a couple of signs we do need to put up, which will be happening possibly as we speak. But yeah, happy to take any questions.
Thank you. So, elected members, are there questions for clarification regarding Poto Road Phase 1? No questions for clarification. All those green lights there, Greg's the look of the Irish. Well done. No further question. Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock, is that a question?
Yes, I do have a question, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor. My question, Greg, is just an inquiry about the cones on the 50-kilometre road speed limit. How long will that be maintained? What, sorry, imposed?
Yeah. As soon as I understand, those relate to where we don't have the curve advisory signs. So as soon as those signs are erected, then those cones and temporary speed limits will come down.
Okay. I thought it may be to do with the new seal being, they want to keep it, stop it from being kind of torn up in its kind of new birthed state, so to speak.
No, I think it relates to the signs. Usually with the new seal, there is, when they construct it, some sort of element of active traffic management to try and get the stone to bed in, but that only lasts for a short period of time.
Right. Awesome. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Curnow, question for clarification.
It's just a question about, while you're doing this project, if other issues arise or are found while doing that, are they addressed? I'm thinking in particular of the bridge approach at Mosquito Gully, which has quite a ledge to get on and off, and it has actually caused a couple of traffic incidents. So I'm just wondering, is that, where does that fit in with this?
I suppose what we do try to do when we have a project, the scope of it is, make the improvements as best we can and get the road up to the standards where it should be. And if we do find things, to try and address them through the project, if financially viable. If not, then obviously we take a note of them and pass them back to the asset team for forward works programming to be able to come into maybe a future program of improvements, low cost risk improvements. So we do, there is a process of that, but anything we can fix within the project, we'll seek to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully that particular issue got picked up somewhere along the line. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So are there any further questions, elected members? No further questions. Thank you, Greg. Thank you. You may stand down. So we're going to Councillor Wills for the opening statement. Thank you.
Thank you. No, it was great to see. It was unfortunate that I missed the blessing, but it was I appreciated the fact that the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Delavaris Woodcock were there to represent the council. It's been really appreciated by the locals down there. It's probably, with me finishing up in the council, probably the biggest thing that I've been involved with as a councillor, as a progress for our community on the West Coast. And I guess I'm taking this opportunity to thank the rest of the council for your support and agreeing to allow the extra funding that came out of the council to complete this project rather than let it fail at the last hurdle. So I guess I'm taking this opportunity to thank you all very much for your support. I know there's lots of roads around the community that need work. Social media constantly reminds me of that. And that's probably one thing on council I'm quite looking forward to not paying attention to in the future. But staying focused on this project, when you do a project like this, unfortunately, it brings to the attention of the community the other ones that are less well progressed. So they'll constantly come back with the next expectation. I do get text regularly when they see a grader on a truck going down to Poto, assuming it's carrying on with grading the next instalment. But unfortunately, it's probably more likely to be going to a forestry block than our one. I'm rambling a little bit, but it's probably because I'm just really pleased at how successful this project has been and the fact that it's come to its conclusion. And I guess it's a relief when we've got so many other projects that are still in train. So thank you very much to the rest of the council.
Thank you. Councillor Delavaris Woodcock, statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to say how incredible it was to drive down to the blessing at Rangitane Hall for someone that lived in Poto for 5.5 years. It is the most isolated place in New Zealand, 67 kilometres from essential services, emergency services, doctors, supermarkets. It cost 5 times more than any other Kaipura road to maintain because of the heavy usage of all the logging trucks. So this is a huge win for the whole district, but particularly for those people who live in Poto. It just could be described as seventh heaven or a dream come true to see that road that, you know, they have to contend with, that tyranny of that distance. And so I was just so delighted for the community down there, and they are so happy and gratified. So well done to all. And I just had to have a chuckle because Councillor Curnow mentioned Mosquito Gully Bridge as an issue that's come to light. And I would like to point out, since we've got our wonderful NTA manager Greg here, that the Mosquito Gully Bridge, being a bridge that is there at the bottom of where one hill comes down, the other hill comes down. Both parts of the road have been sealed, not as part of this project, but have always been sealed. So there are places, it's part of the Poto Road journey where traffic users and vehicles actually drive at speed, and they meet down at the bottom in Mosquito Gully Bridge, which is narrow. It has a huge jadabar or lip because of subsidence. So it is a natural danger point, and it has been pointed out to council for decades that that bridge needs to be properly widened. And so I imagine it hasn't been because of the cost, but it is very much a live issue. And so, but nevertheless, we see progress on Poto Road. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further statements from elected members here? Councillor Vincent. You're on mute, Councillor Vincent.
Oh, sorry, I've been unmuted all this time. Okay, I was just operating without a mouse, so it takes a little bit for my coordination to sling into action. I'd just like to make the observation for the benefit of Greg Monteith that a need that has been met is no longer a motivator for action. So when we've crossed this one off the list, yes, it highlights the next thing that needs to be done, I guess. So we should bask in the glory of it while we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further statements from elected members here? A quick statement from me. I was very proud and happy to represent all of the council along with Councillor Kerner and Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock at the blessing and opening of the road just last week at Rangatane Hall. The community was very, very happy and excited about what we'd achieved here, and it's a real step change. So I acknowledge the two kind of West Coast councillors here for their continued support and work here, and for all of the council and the intention of the sealing of Poto Road that was first announced as a package on the 2nd of February in 2019 at the Otamatea Marae as alongside the Kaipura Kickstart, which is the genesis of the rest of these projects, so many of these projects here. And we've come a long way, but the important thing is that for the people of Poto or anyone traveling to Poto, that road now is just like an ordinary road. It's no longer a barrier to development or economic development for that place. And it's an extraordinary step change for all of Western Kaipura and Kaipura District as a whole. So the people in the east, it's less of a barrier for them now to get to Poto than it was. And so we're looking forward to better east-west exchanges all across Kaipura and the great opportunities that are ahead. But I go back to the beginning of this in early February 2019, which seems like a long time ago, but these great projects take time and thousands of hours and great skills by the engineers and the people organizing the project. So congratulations to everyone, and it's great to be at the end of this. It's a significant milestone, the longest sealing project in Northland in a decade, and well done Kaipura District Council. I'm very, very proud of this. So thank you, everyone. Are there further statements? We'll go back to Councillor Wills for a closing statement.
Your statement was a good way to end this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So we're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, thank you. Farewell, Poto Road Phase 1. Moving on, Waipoa River Road. This is the next of our agenda items for today, Waipoa River Road, and I am happy to move this item. I'm seeking a seconder here. Councillor Curnow, thank you. Greg Monteith, kia ora.
Thank you, Your Worship. I take the report as read. Yeah, pretty much this one is done and dusted as well. We have our blessing on Friday. So yeah, so it's just for, as a project team, it's just tidying up sort of the loose ends and disestablishing. So it's pretty much up and running, I'm aware. So yeah, so it will be just the blessing on Friday, and then obviously the only outstanding item really in this is the future maintenance, and we need to continue working on with that. That relates into the request that we've got into MB for the reallocation of the Poto 2 design funds to be able to use that, which will help then to facilitate that conversation around future maintenance. So we are progressing that and having discussions with MB just to see where that is, and we raised that at our last operational steering group, which MB was going to follow up to see where that sits in the process of getting that request up to the minister for that approval. So yeah, we'll continue to chase that up, and when we have an answer there, that will hopefully then be able to close out the future maintenance discussion.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Wethy, then Councillor Curnow for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Greg, look, just following on from that comment, I understood that I thought from the last meeting we had that the Chief Executive, Louise Miller, was going to sort of try and find out if we could make some progress on this question of ongoing maintenance and etc. I don't know whether she has, and I don't know whether we have as a council and as the, if you like, the project manager for this project, made it very clear to the other stakeholders, both Te Rurua and DOC, that in fact we as a council are not accepting the road to be vested until we have an agreed maintenance contract. Has that been formally stated? I know we've talked about it often enough. This has taken so long. It's been on the agenda now for 12 months, and we've made, you know.
We've certainly had those discussions, and obviously KDC's position has been made very clear on that, of the future maintenance and investing of the road. So yeah, so I think everyone is aware of that. In terms of Louise following up, that's probably a shortfall in my area that I do need to follow up and provide Louise with an email report just to be able to follow up with Doc on that. So that action is sitting with me. And I'll make a note of that to follow up on. I suppose specifically it's yeah, the conversation around if we can reduce that cost, it might then help to facilitate that, I suppose, is the approach we're taking as a project team. But we are continuously sort of chasing up with Doc and requesting some sort of feedback. But I will take that on board, that I will follow up with the report on to Louise to be able to raise that up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's clear. Councillor Curnow, then Councillor Vincent.
Yeah, I'm still a little unclear on I know you said you're clear, thank you, Mayor, but I'm still a little unclear about the maintenance issue and the whole ownership of the road. My understanding was that we were not going to, the road was not going to be vested in council, that someone else would own it, someone else would be responsible for maintenance, but I'm getting a little confused as to where we're at with it.
The road currently is owned by Te Rurua. I suppose there is the conversation of, obviously, because there's a future development in there of the visitor centre and the relationship with DOC and how that links in to that, and I suppose their interests in that road. Obviously, KDC's involvement is specifically just as part of the application that went into TMP. the offer was made for KDC to facilitate the construction of the road, and that was it. No ongoing future maintenance. So there's no responsibility or expectation that KDC will maintain the road or vest it. I think it's been very made clear and abundant that obviously KDC council does not want to divest the road or have future maintenance on that. So we have sort of made that clear. So now it's just to see, I suppose, from my perspective as a project team, just how best to be able to leave that road and secure that investment that was made as well, sort of thing, to be able to get that second coat sale on it and to be able to buy more time off that road, so to reduce any possible future maintenance going on it.
So what you're suggesting is that the leftover money from the design funding for Poto 2, that might be used to help with the second seal, but that's it.
Yeah, so that's the request at the moment, to ask, can that then, just to finish off and protect that investment, and then obviously at that point, yeah, we'd hopefully then be further down the road with the discussions around possible vesting or future maintenance with that. But from KDC's perspective, I suppose there is no obligation, and I suppose our stance has always been that at some point then we will just obviously hand that over, the as-built and the future maintenance requirements back to Tyrrell.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vincent. Mute again.
Okay, right. I just, I guess in that same area as well, in the process of designing the road, was any survey work done to actually sort of identify its legal boundaries? Because I would imagine that if there was a move for it to be vested in someone other than the current owner, there'd need to be some boundary lines created, which would be a significant extra cost, I imagine. So was any work done in that area?
They would have surveyed the route to undertake the design, so there would be a survey of that. That it sort of leads into, I suppose, the more complicated situation of the land ownership and the ownership of the road, and whether Tyrrell would want to divest the actual land over to someone else, or whether the agreement would be that they still own the land, but the road itself that sits on top of the land is vested and owned by someone else, and there's an access agreement to be able to go in and maintain and use that road. I think where it will go, but there certainly has been a survey done prior to construction. There won't be one done afterwards as part of the construction, but that might be something for consideration that would have to come into the discussions going forward, if it was, depending which route the vesting of the road took.
Yeah, I could see some tens of thousands of dollars being soaked up with that. And as in that regard too, are we generally okay with the financial side of things in terms of the contingency amount, that we're not going to be exceeding that by the time we've got the traffic lights and everything installed and all the signage and everything?
No, everything's installed as far as where the traffic lights have gone in a number of weeks ago. They've been up and running. We've placed things in motions that they can run independently on a loop signal by themselves if needs be. The budget is all in hand, and there's no overruns expected.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Yes, you've just answered my question, which was about the traffic lights, because in the report that we have here, dated the 22nd of April, the traffic lights are not installed, but they're on their way. And so I was just going to seek clarification about whether the traffic lights are installed or not. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. They have been installed, yes.
Thank you. And they're operating as expected. Yep.
I think so.
Thank you. Lovely. Thank you. Councillor Wethy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Greg, look, just the discussion around Councillor Curno's question sort of has raised another issue for me. Just clarify, did I hear correct that you're saying that the unspent money in Poto Road Phase 2 could be, you replied to MB to see if that could be used to cover the cost of the first seal after the road's been completed?
Yep, that's correct.
Well, I wonder whether that's acceptable, because this Waipua Road is not a Kaipura District Council project. It's a project that was money from the PGF granted to Te Roroa to get their road sealed, and we're only a project manager. Now, I've got no problem at all with unspent money on one of Kaipura District Council's projects being allocated, if we can get it, to another Kaipura District Council's projects. But this really is an extension of the Waipua Road project. We know that all new sealed roads have to go and have a second seal put on within a year or two of their completion. But it's not our project. So why are we thinking of having our money that was originally allocated to one of our projects now being diverted to another stakeholder's project?
I
I
suppose
think council needs to look at pretty carefully.
Yeah, we've taken the approach, and I suppose as a project team, that money was going back to MB. We'd finished it and we couldn't allocate it somewhere else without permission. We already had previous discussions about trying to facilitate POTO phase 2 in various forms of shortened down or restricted kilometers of what we may seal, and I suppose all those requests or applications were denied. So this we saw, I suppose, is the money was going back to central government. Regardless, we didn't have any other projects, I suppose, to put it onto, or any other projects that they would approve to it. So this was seen as an opportunity. Would they do this with the circumstances of the road, and on future funding, I suppose, constraints on that. So yeah, so that's we looked at the opportunity, and it is still only just a request that we've put in. It hasn't been granted yet, so we still have to wait and see.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not overly happy with that, but yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Delavaris Woodcock. Question.
Yes, thank you, Greg. Picking up from Councillor Wethy's point here, Greg, does that mean if we take the Poto Road phase 2 money unspent and direct it to the second seal costs for Waipoa River Road, that would mean that we were without funds to address improvement of the car park at Poto Point, which has been flagged as something that will be needed to be done, particularly with the new wharf that is proposed there. So I'm concerned that Poto Road phase 2 seal money should be left for that eventuality of the car park and the access way at Poto Point, and not be directed, as Mr. Wethy said, to Councillor Wethy, sorry, outside of the Kaipura District projects. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so that was a statement there, Councillor Delavaris Woodcock, rather than a question.
Well, my question was, am I correct that that would leave that there would be a... Can you comment on that, Ms.
Yeah, I suppose what I would say is we certainly put a request in for the physical works of phase 2 budget, and options forward to be sealing the end of Poto Road and that town section around there, and to be able to utilize that money and just start to work our way north, and until we sort of ran out of budgets, getting a kilometre, and that was rejected by MB. Certainly the option of we could withdraw the request to MB and to have that redirected to Poto Wharf if that's what council want to do, to put that request in. I suppose it was seen as an opportunity with the ones that were expected just to go back into the general pool of central government, an opportunity to help to try and secure the investment that they've made already in Waipo River Road, and help then to facilitate that future ongoing maintenance. But there's certainly options to change that if council does wish.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you, Greg. You may stand down here regarding this item. Thank you. And So at this point, we'll go to a statement and hear from me. The Waipoa River Road is an extraordinary PGF project, and it appears that we're very near the end of this, with the grand opening on Friday of this week. It's an extraordinary PGF project in Kaipura District because it was the first of the projects that was announced to be being funded here. And as we know, and as we've just heard from Greg, he's reiterated that the situation was that Kaipura District Council was simply the roading contract organizer to seal this road on behalf of the owners of the road. So we've done a great job here to get this across the line. It, of course, includes in Kaipura District the first set of permanent traffic lights in Kaipura District. So it is an historic first for Kaipura District, and I dare say if the traffic lights were to fall from the road surface and into the river, they'd probably be claimed by Far North District Council, because this road is absolutely also the boundary of Kaipura District with Far North District is where Waipoa River lies. And so I expect that these great treasure of the sealed road into the old Waipoa Forest headquarters centre, which is now the Centre for Tororo, is a very, very significant tourism asset for the future of all of North and Te Taitokoro. So I'm very happy that this project is at a major milestone with the opening later this week, and I'm looking forward to that on Friday morning and letting the bright lights shine from the centre of Waipoa Forest. Kia ora. We're going to Deputy Mayor Curnow for a seconding statement. Thank you.
Yes, I want to congratulate the team on a job well done. I mean, this is a project that's coming in pretty much on time, on budget, and it looks like a really good result. I think for me, the question of who's going to be responsible for it in the future is something that I don't want to see this project drop off our radar until that's sorted. Because I would hate to see this excellent work that's been done then kind of slide into disrepair because the subject of who looks after it going forward doesn't get resolved. So yeah, if we can keep that on the agenda until we've got that settled, that would give me a degree of confidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wethy, statements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, look, firstly, I think this has been a very successful project, and I think it's opening up a tourist opportunity, and one that I think Tororo will be able to benefit into the future on. And I think at full marks for them to have initiated the initial request for a PGF grant. And I think the project team that's put the road in have done a remarkably good job. My only concern is, and again, harking back to the unspent money on Potu 2, I've just been reading the report on Potu 1 road, and it goes very clearly that that particular project ran $480,000 over the original budget. And what would have been very nice would have been a real effort to see any money that was left over on Potu Stage 2 directed to Potu Stage 1 to somehow at least minimise the amount of council ratepayer funds that were going in there to support that overrun on that first stage, rather than worry about the second seal on a project that isn't even on a KDC road. So that's my only concern. I think the project itself is a good one, but I'm concerned about the financial implications of us releasing or diverting money from an unspent project of our own into a project that is not a KDC owned and operated project. So that is still a concern. I don't know whether the project team have got any way of looking at it retrospectively, it's probably a lost cause now, but it's unfortunate that we weren't a wee bit more forward thinking when we could see that stage 2 Potu Road was going to come to an end without all the funds being spent. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further statements, elected members? No further statements. Thank you. And I waive my right for the closing statement here. Thank you. We're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Greg, for your attendance and this morning and your support of all of these roading related projects. Wishing you well, and thank you for your part of the meeting today. Thank you. Go well.
Thank you, Mayor.
Moving on to section 8 of today's agenda, the Kai irrigation project. So for this item, I'm seeking a mover for the noting of the Kai Water Project report. Councillor Curnow, thank you, and Councillor Vincent seconding that. Thank you. So, and presenting here we have Eros Foschieri presenting for us today. Buongiorno, Eros.
Buongiorno. So I take the report as read, as usual. There's not much to add. This project at the moment is the crop. So as you've seen on the report, they are planting, they're preparing the field for the winter seasons and just covering the field with rice and other type of crops. So we're due for a final season report. So that will come through Northern Inc. And then we are going to be prepared for the next season with the new crop as discussed last time. So before we're going to the next summer, the next planting season, we'll have a report on what we're going to plant or not. But the project at the moment is relatively on hold. So not much to add on that.
Thank you. Are there questions for clarification? Councillor Curnow.
Hello, Eros. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, I'm just wanting a little bit more clarification. So the final season report, I don't know, when I read this report, I thought we were going to get it today, but maybe not. So do we know when we're going to get that, the final season report?
So I will liaise with Northern Inc. and go
Okay.
back to you. So I don't have that information with me now.
Okay. And then just sort of like we got a taste of that last meeting, but I'm wondering if you've got any more information about the learnings that we're taking into the second year. Like, what are the sort of like the top 5 points that we're taking from what we learnt this year that we will or won't do next year? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So that will probably be the final. So the final report, we need to highlight all these items. So we got something in writing and we can go forward. So I'm expecting for Northern Inc. to include that in that report. And as I said before proceeding with any crop or any physical installation next time, there will be a discussion for this forum, a presentation of the plan moving forward beforehand.
Okay, and presumably that will have to come fairly soon because they'll need to be thinking about planting and making decisions about what they're doing fairly soon. Yeah.
If the report is not coming to the next meeting, I will provide you information about when this will come or a timeline, so you got that vision, that clarity ahead. So I don't have with me now, but will be a topic for next month.
Okay.
So for next meeting.
All right. Thank you.
So
That
we'll do
helps.
that next time.
That helps. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. All right, no further questions. Thank you. Thank you, Eros. So we're going to Councillor Curnow here for statement. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just a very short statement from me. We had some information last month about how this had gone and what some of the potential outcomes were. I'm really looking forward to getting a much more detailed look into this so that we can really understand how the decisions about what happens next year are made. Because I think with something like this, the reason we're doing it is learning as well as demonstration. So the demonstration that we've done probably hasn't been as successful as we were hoping. So then therefore the learnings become more important. What did our less than optimal performance teach us? So I'm really looking forward to seeing that report come through hopefully next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Vincent, statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing to add.
Thank you. Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock, statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, apologies, my internet crashed. So I've obviously missed the question time for the Kaipura, but I did have a question. Yes, so on page 66 of the report, it mentions planning for the next season. And I was just wondering, well, I guess it's statement time. So my statement is that could the involvement of sustainable Kaipura be considered, because they have a composting program in action, and it's about the goal of that is replenishing the soil, and they have fielded an inquiry to me about whether or not there was an opportunity for them to be working in partnership with the Kai project to transfer their learnings and their expertise in this matter to achieve the goals of the project going forward. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any further statements? No further statements. We'll go back to Deputy Mayor Curnow for a closing statement, if you so wish.
Nothing further to add, Mayor.
All right. Thank you. So we're putting this report, the noting of this report, to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Eros. So moving on to the next item, item number 9, the Kaipura Wharves project update. Councillor Wills moving this. I'm happy to second this. Thank you. So that puts it onto the table. We have here for this item, I believe, Eros Foschieri is the reporting officer. Di Miller is the project manager regarding the wharves. Is that correct? Which one of you, I'm not certain, is speaking to this?
I will bring, so Di is the one that will talk about this project.
Okay, thank you.
Morning, everybody. All right. Yeah, I just firstly want to acknowledge that obviously you've got the normal status report there in the meeting pack, and since then we've sent out an additional plan of the wharf, which there isn't any reference to in the report. So I just want to acknowledge that the timing of the developments in the last week and since our reporting date has led to this, and we wanted to share this with you at the earliest opportunity. So I'm sure you've got lots and lots of questions about what this means. So we'll I'll cover that off as I provide my update. So since we met last at the extraordinary meeting and the additional funding was approved, the $265,000, after that, on the 29th of April, our Wharves Advisory Group had the opportunity to meet on site for the first time in a very long time with our consultants. WSP and STF were there. Yeah, that opened up a big conversation, and lots of questions were answered. You might recall in that report that came to the extraordinary meeting, We highlighted the fact that there were some Wharves Advisory Group members that were very interested in seeing roll-on, roll-off transportation, provision for that in the design of the wharf. So that was part of the discussion and the questions that were raised with the consultant, and is partly why we've got this this revised picture or drawing in front of you, which I think Tracy will share shortly. Essentially, by moving the tail end of the wharf south, it opens up the entrance to the northern side of the wharf, allowing that roll on, roll off at the beach on that northern side, which is the deepest part where barges and the likes can come in. So that and the consultants have since confirmed the other important point is that there is no additional cost or no risk by doing that option versus the other one. So that became something that was sort of on the table, and the Wharves Advisory Group certainly were all aligned on that this is a great option for future proofing, etc. Another really important meeting that happened shortly after that one. So last week we met with the marae online, and we also met on site with Kaitiaki in Poto. And if you recall, the previous conversations with the marae about the wharf had been limited, and that was because of the stage we were up to in the project and having to confirm that funding. So we swiftly, prioritised getting back in front of them to share more detail. What we learned through that on-site meeting, that something that was really important to the marae was health and safety. Naturally, they're really interested in the environment. They were interested in the functionality and user aspects. But the health and safety, particularly of access in and out of the beach, and the fact that that entrance is so narrow and that cars come speeding through there, that it's shared with pedestrians and vehicles, and so how does our wharf achieve, how is it going to be safe for everyone? And so what so you'll see from the picture. Tracy, it might be good to share it now if you could, that might be helpful. So you'll see that the end of the wharf butts right up into that road reserve area, which naturally we can't leave it like that. And this picture was put together quite quickly, so our timeframes didn't allow to show you what it will mean for that road reserve, and it would actually be excavated by about 6 or 7 metres, and the goal being opening up for 2 lanes of traffic, being able to access the beach on the northern side as well as the southern side. So the gap that is there on the northern side at the moment would be as it is. That southern side is where you would get 2 lanes of traffic being able to come in and out of that. So it's quite a bit of excavation there, and it is road reserve. So we've confirmed with NTA and our consultant that we can do that, provided that we are doing that within their guidelines and etc. So that was so essentially where we got to is that the Wharves Advisory Group and Kaitiaki, who were on site, were in favour of this latest option in front of you. We consider it a minor change. There is no change to the wharf at all, with the exception of that tail end has moved south, and the additional work is that excavation, which we're able to achieve within our budget. In terms of that excavation, it would be battering that bank right back, not sort of no retaining required or anything like that, and stabilising that sand with this natural vegetation once it's been battered back. I'm going to talk about procurement risk, and sort of update you on that side of things, but I thought that might be a good place to pause just to talk about this adjusted wharf. Any questions?
Thank you. So So before we go to Councillor, sorry, and someone, there's a noise in the background, maybe over your shoulder there, Di, if you could please ask for silence. Thank you, thank you. Before we go to the questions from the others, I've just got a really high level question here. We had the papers that were originally sent had the wharf in one location closer to the rock, all right, and now you're saying that there's a different plan. Are you saying for us here that, hey, there's an option, which way do you want to go? Or are you saying, no, it's no longer the option near the rock, it is this second option you've described, that is the path and the direction? I'm just seeking clarity about the space that we as elected members are in, and what we are receiving here. Is this a new direction that has been adopted by the advisory group? Yeah, so.
Yes, Your Worship. Yeah, good clarification, because we weren't able to provide any words with the picture. So yes, that's exactly what we're saying. Is that our Wolves Advisory Group and our kaitiaki are in favour of this this option here, and so that's our recommendation.
So, that's the second option that came as a standalone image with no description.
Correct, that's right.
Okay, just for the avoidance of doubt. Okay, thank you. Councillor Wills' question, then Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock, and then Councillor Wethy to get us rolling. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to probably direct my questions through you. Well, I am. I've raised the concern that this advisory group does not override the council's direction on what was required from this wharf construction. And I'm not making a statement, I'm coming to my questions, Mr. Mayor. For example, we were very specific at council that this was not to provide vehicle or to encourage vehicle access on and off this beach. That was quite clear, and that was a mandate from the council in supporting this funding. Now we've been presented a project that actually will endorse the ability for that to take place. That is against what we agreed as a group, taking into account the biodiversity of that beach and the amount of vehicles already getting onto it. That we agreed as a council not to encourage vehicle access from Auckland or make it any easier. So that's my first question, is how, there's a number of questions, and I'm sorry they sound like statements. How is this meeting the council's, one of the council's main mandates in approving this finance, please? I'm asking this question to the project team.
Sure, thanks for that clarification, Councillor Wills. Yes, look, that's a great question. We have, recently been focused on the marae, and getting that, catching up on that community engagement that got held up because of the stage of the project that we were up to and the situation that we were in with the funding. We sort of were stuck between a rock and a hard place a little bit there. I personally wasn't aware of what you're talking about, so thank you for making me aware. Yeah, that's really good to know.
Another issue that was raised by the council to justify this money being spent on the wharf was that we were removing the ability of those ferries to hit the sandstone bank that's there currently. But you've just, in this presentation, and I'm not picking on you, I'm trying to explain the background because it's been going for a couple of years. That was one of the specific things we were looking to remove, is the damage to our environment down at Poto. And I'm quite disappointed that the marae spokespeople haven't brought that up, because that's quite important to them. And that was one of the reasons for justifying this expenditure on the wharf. So my question to you is, who in the advisory group is encouraging boats still to hit that sandstone bank and damage it, when we, as a council, thought that was important to prevent it keep continuing?
Sure. Yeah, I would say 50% of the advisory group are interested in that future proofing and the barges being able to access that area in the future. I think the wharf structure being there means that, you know, the QP2 and other vessels will opt to you know, use the wharf versus nose up on the sand like they have been doing previously. When we're talking about future proofing, and this has been quite a big discussion, we're talking quite a long way away, right? Before there is a barge that is doing vehicle passenger, you know, transporting passengers and their vehicles across. And something our consultant highlighted to the project team and the advisory group and Kaitiaki last week is there is a whole resource consent process that goes along with that. So by putting that there doesn't mean it happens instantly. Marae did talk about the damage to that area, and that was something that they didn't want to see happen. So they absolutely touched on that. But all things considered, and when they you know, a lot of things were discussed on site. We were there for quite a few hours, and it was dark by the time we finished up. They determined that this was, you know, this was their preferred option. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll continue with my questions because I know the people on that advisory group, and it's not necessarily who, and I am from that area, and I would not necessarily have that group's been chosen by people who have had an outspoken interaction with the council on other matters, not necessarily people that have an interest in the water as a means of transport. Anyway, I'll carry on with my questions, please. You mentioned the resource consent. One of the issues with this project, and these questions are directed at the project, not at you as a presenter, please understand that. You've mentioned resource consent. One of the issues with this project has been the constant ongoing delays regarding decisions, funding, etc. We're now talking about excavating those sandhills to the south of the proposed wharf as a vehicle access. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
You've also mentioned that that's within the road reserve.
Yes, that's right.
Has that been confirmed by council staff, please?
Yes, it has been confirmed by council staff.
Because
yes.
the reason I asked that question is that area is multi-managed by the regional council and DOC, and DOC have a vested interest in that particular peninsula as a environmental protection for the Poto community or the people that reside down there.
Yes.
So I'll stick to my questions. I'll keep going. So is there a resource consent needed for the excavation of that sand?
No, there's not for the excavation of the sand there. If we were below that mean high tide line, then yes, there would be. But while we're north of, on the other side of that, where the bank is, then it's not needed. No. And just acknowledging your point about DOC and biodiversity, we are in the process of scheduling a time to meet with DOC and Environs on site, just to go through this in detail. So that's happening in parallel.
So that could lead to further, because we are running out of time to get funding to hold on to our funding. Does this change at this late stage affect our time frame and may risk our funding? I can see a lot of opposition that may not necessarily be of a legal nature, but it will have people in that community have an opinion. Can they derail this project by slowing it down?
Look, I think there's only a very small chance of that happening. So Environs have put together a 3-page letter outlining, you know, their understanding and their sort of conditions of endorsement of this location. That's been lodged with the resource consent, and it is conditional on them completing their addendum to the existing cultural impact assessment. As far as sort of that wider support, I think the members from Waikato to Marae that were present were mostly Kaitiaki, and are very comfortable that the wider Marae will support this as well, although we are also in the process of booking in a date to share this information with the wider marae. I think their view was that giving them this option as well as the other option to discuss would absolutely cause delays and confusion and not support us moving forward, and they wanted to avoid doing that.
So one last question, and I'll leave it to other councillors. Thank you for your patience. So this proposed, the change plan would in fact encourage or allow vehicle access on both sides of the proposed boardwalk. Is that correct? Both to the north and the south?
Yeah, that's correct. It'll be a single lane, at least 4 metres on the northern side and about 8 metres on the southern side.
Okay, no, thank you. Thank you. It was just one of our concerns was protecting that point from vehicle access, but I'll leave it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor De La Varas Woodcock, question for clarification.
Yes, thank you, Di. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please tell me, Di, that you are going to consult the wider community apart from the stakeholders that you have talked about being participatory in this amendment to the proposal.
Yeah, so there'll be a specific hui with the marae to talk about this proposal, and then an open day for the wider community as well. So those will be scheduled shortly. We're just waiting to hear back from Waikato too about a date with them, and then I think Ruby wants to book something in, so our comms specialist on the project, a month in advance for the wider community, so that, you know, we can get a high attendance.
So why is the community being consulted on in two different occasions, separating the stakeholders and the community?
Yeah, look, it doesn't have to be that way at all, and we're just waiting on direction from the marae on what they would like to do. We were looking at attending they've got their first meeting back face to face this Sunday, and they were considering us joining that meeting, but then the person looking into that is unwell, so yeah, that was potentially going to be an opportunity for us to have that you know, just directly with the marae, and then the wider community. That would be, you know, the marae as well as anyone else. Yeah, it's really just sort of how things are evolving, but we want to just make sure that we cover everybody.
My third question is, when this stakeholder engagement consultation on the amended proposal is presented, is it possible within the timeframes we have to have an artist's impression of what this proposed development will look like and feel like to that existing environment? This is crucial because what the proposal is now looking like is very, very significant. What's the word? Significant change and development, and actual, I use the word destruction of the little bit of native bush. And can you tell me that you've talked about 2 vehicle entrances, so there needs to be an artistic impression visually for the community to understand what this looks like. And
yeah, absolutely. It would have been lovely to have that for you today, but yeah, so that's in development at the moment, and we certainly wouldn't go. Yeah, we wouldn't want to be in front of the community, because it just is. It's really difficult, isn't it, to sort of visualize what it's going to look like. So yes is the answer to your question. We will have one of those.
thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. I'm going to bring in, Mr. Maris here, and also Davidson. Considering the nature of what we're now dealing with here, and the incompleteness of the information that we have before us that we're supposed to be noting, and the sense of dissatisfaction that that's coming through regarding the process here. Would it be possible for us to head towards an extraordinary meeting of the Externally Funded Projects Committee at some point very, very soon, so that the council, the elected members of the council, are across all of the information before it goes to the community, rather than, if you like, us turning up at a public meeting going, gosh, this is the first time we've seen this?
Through you, Your Worship. So in some regards, I'm going to have to defer to Di to ask about the timing here and whether or not that would delay the project. I do absolutely 100% recognise what the councillors and elect members are saying here as well. So it's definitely a possibility. But in the first instance, if I could just defer to Di, and in the first instance around timing, that would be good.
Yes, sorry, through you, Your Worship. I think that is a very good idea. There's a number of things that Di and myself are hearing for the first time. So it would be good if we could take away all the concerns from this meeting. And I do support you, Your Worship, in having that session with the councillors.
Thank you, and thank you for the lead on that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Maris. We'll proceed with the questions. I have a question, and it is in the spirit of the information sharing and in the same vein here. What familiarity do all of the project staff have, and what familiarity does the Poto Wharf Advisory Group have with the complete design study that was done 20 years ago, the $100,000 design and feasibility study for the wharf at Poto, which included substantial community consultation and engagement, including with other partners such as Heritage New Zealand, known at the time as the New Zealand Historic Places Trust, regarding Poto Lighthouse, historic lighthouse, where they were all 20 years ago absolutely adamant that there should be no vehicle access provided regarding any wharf structure. Now, that was 20 years ago. What my question to you is, what familiarity do the staff who are leading this project and the advisory group have with the comprehensive work that was done 20 years ago that was emphatic here about no vehicle access with a wharf? It's on-off wharf, you know, trying not to shovel vehicles onto fragile Poto Point. My simple question is, what familiarity do all the people here have with that work, which included a detailed cultural impact assessment by Waikato Marae?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I think it's probably mixed familiarity. Certainly our Poto-based member brought some of that information to our on-site meetings. So he's and he's joined the Wharves Advisory Group later in the piece. The original members are aware of it, and it was talked about, are aware of it when the Wharves Advisory Group was established, as I established it back then, and obviously left to do other things and have come back. But yeah, like I take the point in that something as critical as that has been missed. It's I recall it as being really comprehensive. You know, a lot of information in there, and yeah, we absolutely should reflect on that and make sure that yeah, we're recognising those things and talking to the marae about that as well, you know, and the fact that this is what was being said all those years ago. Is that still the feeling? So yeah, so thank you.
Thank you. And then you've re-entered the screen. Kia ora.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. I think we'll have to re-engage in light of the new information that's come out. As I said last time when we presented for extra funding, this project has had a lot of moving parts. So we do recognise and acknowledge that there's a little bit of homework that we'll need to do in light of all the new information and the concerns raised by Councillor. So we will take it away and come back to that extraordinary meeting with all the answers that will be tabled today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I see Councillor Curno's hand has come down now. So that's like I'm sensing a kind of maybe we just need to defer the rest of this until we get further down the line here into if we are headed towards an extraordinary meeting on this. Councillor Withy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I support your suggestion that we have not got, well, we've got so many pieces of new information right today. I think it's wise to consolidate our position and have that extraordinary meeting. But in that extraordinary meeting, could I ask that whatever design is put up, we have got in your current report a very clear red flag, which is associated with the material supply of some of the hardwoods required for the building of this wharf. Now, any changes to design, I would certainly like confirmation that there will be no erosion of the $175,000 contingency that was part of the $265,000 that we approved last month, because you flagged to us all today there is a real risk we're going to need all of that contingency because of the issues with supply of the raw materials. I would hate to think that we're going to start creeping into that contingency on changing designs, etc. So when you come back to that extraordinary meeting, could you please look at including all of that to give us the confidence that we're going in the right direction? Because I think the points that both the Mayor and Councillor Wills has raised, plus my financial overview, I think needs to be addressed before we can go forward and make the future decision. But obviously speed is of the essence, because every week or month we delay, I see our contingency starting to get less confident that we're going to be within it. So look forward to that. Thanks, Di.
Thank you. Councillor Delavaris Woodcock, question.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, will we be having statements as well in this item?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay. My question is, is Doc going to be party to the next part of the engagement? And I heard that they are going to be. So could I be assured that they will address their assessment of the risk to the dotterel population?
Thank you, Councillor Delavaris Woodcock. Yeah, the dotterel population is something that's highlighted in the report from BioResearch. And is also with the fee who is doing the cultural addendum. So yeah, it's definitely front of mind. It's one of the top risks, I suppose, in terms of the timing of construction. So so yes is the answer to your question. Yeah, Doc will be aware of that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Are there further questions for clarification at this point? All right, thank you. So we'll go to Councillor Wills for a statement here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Gosh, I was looking forward to being supportive of this project, but I've raised my concerns with my questions. I'm conscious that this project has had a number of project managers over the last couple of years, and that makes it difficult for continuity of information. So my questions and my comments are not directed at the current project team, they're directed at the project itself. And as I mentioned in my questions, once the funding was put in place, as a council, we raised a number of concerns that there'd be limits put on the potential use of this wharf, or that we actually had we envisaged what it was to be intended for, which was largely to help the cycleway circuit, to get more people using that, and it was to help low impact tourism, walk on, walk off type people. It wasn't to be supportive of wholesale commercial enterprise, such as, you know, large scale transfer of goods to Auckland. It was more the crafts type. We were looking alongside the tar sealing of the Poto Road to encourage low impact improvement in the economic performance down there and the opportunities. We weren't looking to create a wholesale change to the Poto Peninsula. And I feel that from the presentation we've had, there's been a bit of a hijacking of those vision by some of those people in the advisory group. And that's not the first time I've raised concerns about the membership of that group and their impact on the decision process, when in fact it's our council's agreement and decision as to what we fund and what it gets used for. And I do want to bring that back to the table in my statement. It's our decision on what the wharf gets built and what the limitations, if any, are put in place in its design. This has become an issue where the amount of money we've sunk into it means we have to continue, but we shouldn't be beholden to a handful of outspoken people. And we do, in our consultation with the community, we need to not slow down this progress or we will lose the money completely and then we'll get nothing. But the issues I raised, the benefits of the wharf was to protect that environment from further damage, which the QP is currently doing every time it hits that bank. It's to encourage some low impact tourism or crafts or business, encourage people to pull in there in their boats and stop and make use of that down there. I also understand that it was originally to encourage transport between the various marae, but I'd include also those smaller remote communities. Even if there's enough people stop, it will encourage a small retail type shop possibly in the future. There's lots of opportunities there. So I fully support the wharf. I just don't want it to be done in a way that has such a major impact on that environment, particularly when there's a mention of cutting 6 or 7 meters out of sandhills to get access on the south side of the proposed wharf location. So there's a lot of questions I've got, but I want to ask them and have them answered without delaying this project and putting at risk the funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. For me, with a very long lens that I have on the idea of a wharf at Poto Point, I'm going, there is not a moment to be lost as far as I'm concerned. I'm very surprised, very, very surprised at the new idea that's come through, which to me indicates substantial destruction of the current environment of fragile Poto Point regarding the rock and regarding that little piece of bush that, if you like, helps protect the rock structure beside the current road, on, if you like, on the southeast side. The whole place needs, as in my view, needs as little modification as we can possibly have to have a successful wharf here. And so I'm very, very concerned from having been the project manager for the wharf project 20 years ago. I'm very, very concerned at what the developments I'm seeing here today. I would offer as the mayor that I'm really happy to attend any meeting in Waikato or with the community or at Poto Marine Hall. Absolutely any day I'm requested, and would prioritize that over almost anything else within the next 2 to 3 weeks in order to expedite this and bring us to a coherent place. As Councillor Wills has said, this is a decision of the council. The council is very, very able to say, thank you, advisory group, and we don't accept your advice. Yeah, and that is the responsibility of being an elected member of this council. And so we are in a place right now where I'm going, we need to bring this quickly to a single coherent story. If the office of the mayor can assist with that, I'm absolutely putting that on the table as a key priority in the next 2 to 3 weeks regarding any meeting there or at the engineers' offices in Whangarei or wherever this may be required, but certainly at Waikato as well. I put that out there. So I'm very, very keen that we make the very best of this and that this extraordinary opportunity for the community of Poto, which is the closest part of Northland as the seagull flies to the Auckland Sky Tower, is both enhanced and protected at the same time as we move forward here. And I do not see vehicle wharf facilities here in any way helping the ongoing protection of this fragile place. Kia ora.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm upset here. Councillor Vincent, thank you. And you're on mute.
I'd like to test the mood of the meeting with an amendment to add to the report being noted, and to add the words, and that the project team be reminded of the basis upon which council approved the project, particularly with reference to environmental protection considerations. So that is my amendment, and I'd just like to see if there's anyone that would be prepared to second that.
So, Councillor Delavaris Woodcock, are you seconding that amendment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you. So that now becomes the substantive motion here regarding the noting of this report. So that's being added onto as, if you like, a further qualifying statement here. Councillor Vincent, would you be able to type that so that everyone can see that, please?
Shall I do that in the chat box?
Yes, please.
Yep, okay, because that will include Tracy too, won't it? Yep, okay.
So there we are. Councillor Vincent has put into the chat box the following words, which is to be added on to the end of the current originating recommendation here. And that the project team be reminded of the basis upon which council approved the project, particularly in relation to environmental protection considerations, full stop. So this is moved by Councillor Vincent, seconded by Councillor Delavaris Woodcock. So that is now on to the table. So Councillor Vincent, the statement here is yours. Thank you. As the mover.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I just thought that it would help to underline the issues which especially Councillor Wills has brought to the meeting, and since he had already spoken, he wouldn't have been in a position to move any amendment. So I thought that at least I could, I guess, help to highlight for the benefit of the project just what the feeling of the council is about it, and the direction that it's just taken, without which came as something of a surprise, because there are aspects that I wasn't fully aware of until now, and but I see that, well, at least, or maybe my memory has failed me or whatever, but it seems like we do need to be careful about how we introduce new technology, I guess new physical structures in a sensitive physical environment. So that is the basis for my motion, or amendment rather.
Thank you. Thank you. And as the seconder, Councillor De La Varas Woodcock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to hear my fellow elected representatives use the word sensitive and fragile, and I'm going to share in the Mayor's vulnerability by being vulnerable myself. And I birthed my first two sons in Poto, and two of their placenta. Their placentas are there, and when I lived there and my boys Orlando and Dante were toddlers, their favorite place to play was down at this place where we are all looking at where a proposed development will be. It was their playground, so to speak, and it was my great delight to watch these toddlers, these little kids running through underneath the manuka there, the shade, and there's this, mingimingi grass and tororaro, these lovely native plants, and it is so undeveloped that is part of its magic. And while I have previously endorsed this wharf development because of support for the community's aspirations, I did so with personal misgivings, because I remember the pristine nature of this place that we are proposing to develop. And I've mentioned in the previous item the isolation of this geographically, which helps it to be undeveloped as it is. So what we have at stake here is a loss of spectacular natural wonder if we don't get it right and if we have insensitive development. So I'm also concerned about kind of separate engagement of the community. The community is one, and so I just put that there for the project managers to consider. I also would like to remind the project team that the Poto School newsletter is a source of news, and making sure that the engagement is notified well in advance so that we get a full community attendance. I would also put my hand up to be there and to support the community getting their heads around what we have here in this decision, and also want to remind our council that and we have talked about ferry turns on the other side at Mangify, but Poto, and just beyond the wharf there is the nesting wahi place, the sacred place where the dotterels nest, and they're already under threat and imposed upon by the dirt bikes and dogs and all sorts of things, because they it's such a dynamic environment. The sands move and the birds just have to find a little place to nest, and so all of these precious things that we all value are at stake. This has to be done with absolute consideration and foresight. We need to understand the implications of what we are proposing. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further statements here? Councillor Curnow. On mute.
Oh, it's obviously a day for it, isn't it? Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm really concerned about the significance of this new proposal, and also that it's been presented to us as, no, this is how it's going to be. There are just so many unknowns about what's being presented to us, and I can only imagine if you remove a bit of a point, that you're exposing the rest of it to a whole lot of uncertain outcomes. I mean, we know that that's a highly active environment, and we just don't understand what the outcomes could be by doing that. The original proposal didn't change any of that, but we're talking about excavating part of the protection of that area. So there are environmental considerations, but there's also infrastructure considerations. What would be the impact of that? So I'm really concerned about the way that this has landed very suddenly and very differently, with many of the considerations that I would have hoped were in place are not. So yeah, I really look forward to the other information being gathered up and coming back to us for a proper look at it, because I just don't think we can make a proper go of it today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Further statements? Councillor Wilson-Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not much more to add, really. My concerns have already been vocalised, but just to say that I'm on board with what's already been said this morning, and I just look forward to getting that further information. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there further statements here? No further statements. Right. Thank you. So at this point, we're going to vote on the amendment to make it the substantive motion here. All right. So we're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Oh, what? Hold. Sorry. Thank you. Yep. Okay. Screen going all over the place. Thank you. Captured. Thank you. In support there. Thank you. So that is now the substantive motion. And so at this point, I'm putting this as the substantive motion to the vote here. So all those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Against. Carried. Thank you. So that is the conclusion of this item for today. So Di and Anin, you will have a clear direction from us here. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to our next item for today. Councillor Wills.
Mr. Mayor, you apologised before for not allowing a final statement from the mover.
Sorry, no. So Councillor Wills, because of the amendment that's passed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. That's just asking. I was just going to. I didn't want to. So I'll stop. Thank you. I appreciate the support of the council.
Thank you. Yeah, because of the amendment, it then shifted to Councillor Vincent. So I guess technically, that Councillor Vincent could get a seconding statement. No, Mr. Mouse?
Through your worship, if I can just leap in there, the mover of an amendment doesn't get a right of reply. However, after the amendment has been addressed, the mover of the original motion does get a right of reply. So, Councillor.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Aroha mai, I'm wrong. Councillor Wills, you're absolutely welcome. Sorry, learning. It's a learning day. Welcome to make a statement here.
No, sorry. Thank you, Mr. I didn't mean to help delay this. Thank you, and thank you for the council for their support. I didn't choose to speak to the amendment because everything you guys were saying was what I thought, and also what I believe. I've been really supportive of this project, but not at the expense of buggering up the Podo community by letting it become more excessive than what we originally envisaged or planned. And it's our role to direct these at this level, to direct these things. And sometimes some of these projects can become hostage to one or two outspoken people. But the offer from the mayor and others to participate fully with the community hopefully will encourage the normally non-participant to come out with their views, and we can get a final comment from them. So thank you very much, everybody, for allowing this debate to continue, and your support.
Thank you. So we have voted on this matter, but thank you, Councillor Wills, for your statement again. Apologies for that infelicity on my part. We're moving on to the next item here, which is the Dargaville to Te Kopuru Stop Bank project updates. So I'm seeking a mover for this item, please. Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock, thank you. And a seconder here. Councillor Wilson Collins, thank you. And so Eros, speaking to this item, Eros Foschieri again. Kia ora.
Okay, so take the report as read. The corporate stop back so that the preliminary investigation has been completed and the preliminary investigation and planning assessment has been completed. We have engaged the consultant for the next phase, that is the detailed investigation and the research consent. So we have been clear from the beginning that the scope is to get the design, to use this funding as the foundation of these 10 kilometers. So we're going to develop a full detailed design and the research consent that will enable the work in the future for the full length of the works. So this is what we're doing at the moment. And with the funding we've got, we'll maximize what we can do in terms of work, because obviously the funding has been reduced from the original application. So the consultant are undertaking the detailed design, preparation of the consent material. In parallel, council is consulting with the landowners. We have a preliminary discussion. We had a discussion with MB as well last week. So we have slightly changed the program, but we haven't moved the milestone of the construction start date, that is next year. So we have moved the enabling works and we coupled that with the construction works. So the project is still within program. MB is on board, and we're carrying on all the detail and consent application. The main risk at this stage that you're foreseen is obviously, because it's a long stretch of land, it's about 10 kilometers, so there will be a lot of there will be quite significant consultation ongoing that may delay the application or the research consent process. So we are aware of that, so we are ramping up with the consultation as we speak. And we also managed to have a plan B in case this consultation take longer or start working in different chunks. So we got a plan B plan B of attack if the consultation take longer than expected. So that is where we are at the moment.
Thank you, Eros. I have a question for you. Would it be possible for the project team to provide us with a map in separable portions, such as you have for the Kaihu Valley Trail, so that we can see for the 10.7 kilometers, this is the part we're talking about, this is the part, so when, as the project goes on, when you're talking about various locations, everyone is absolutely clear of that?
Exactly. So this will be an output of the design. So the first stage is exactly, so we have the design for the full amount. So everything, so what will be in the future. So the width of the stop banks, the height, and the consent will follow as well. So in the future, we'll be able to build up on this design and not restart it from scratch. The phasing will be actually what you're just asking now, the phasing of what we'll be achieving in terms of physical works, and we will do this separable proportion one, or we'll do that. That will come probably the next 2 or 3 months, once we have a better understanding of what are the holding up, and if there is any hold up in the consultation, we might fast track some areas so we can get the program and the money spent and not holding up. And as well, the design also may flag that there are some areas that require more attention and will maybe the best bang for bucks right now will be another area. So we will working on this, will be an output of the design and will be presented to you.
Yep.
And also the communication with MB as well.
Thank you. Councillor Wethy, then Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock, then Councillor Wills. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Eros, you might be able to just clarify a point on page 82 of the agenda on the schedule. You say here that the procurement plan for the design phase is due to be submitted shortly next week. it is recommending awarding the detailed design and consenting phase to WSP as a director point. Now, is that so? In other words, you have not yet awarded the that phase contract to WSP.
So the report was prepared 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. So in the meantime, so we have done that.
So you've already appointed them.
Yeah, we've appointed. So for the fact that they've pretty much they've been the consultant from the early inception of this project. So bringing up, and they local, and they helping us in this similar work across the district. So bringing another consultant fresh or running a procurement process for this project in this point of time will probably cost us a big chunk in program and risks. So they've been performing really well. They know the area. So
the concern I have, I guess, Eros, is that doing a direct appoint there, and in spite of the fact they've got experience, and let's face it, any contractor that has been working with council does have sort of a bit of an inside running. But it is in variance to our procurement policy to have a direct appoint. And the other thing is that we are starting to develop quite a significant reliance on one contractor. WSP is involved in a lot of council operations, whether it be associated with our wastewaters across the district, all sorts of stormwaters and things. They seem to be the go-to. And I guess I'm just flagging a concern from a governance point of view that we as a council 6 years ago were almost totally reliant on contractors and on some significant single contractors. And I would hate to see us starting to go back in history and start to have the same thing. And that's one of the reasons, I guess, the procurement program or procurement policy states that we should make sure that we always go out and get a competitive tender rather than just appoint. And we can always come up with very, very good reasons why we go to a direct appoint, but the procurement policy states quite clearly what we should be doing for a very good reason. And so I'm just flagging that, and I'll just take it on board when you know.
Peter, I can comment on that. Give me 2 seconds there. So the package of work that we awarded is below the procurement policy. So the 50K job. So for any package of work awarded directly above 50K, we need to go to a competitive process. And so we awarded below that threshold. And I take your point, and again, I understand. So the visions of WSP is involved in this big project, but we got also a number of a lot of consultants that we are using for many works, like our Stantec. And at the moment in the infrastructure area, we got a professional panel services. So we got selected 3 years ago. Council selected three consultants named our Stantec and WSP to undertake the work in this area. So also we got that flexibility in terms of procurement. But going back is we try, and also with this panel we try to spread the work across the consultants, so we're not going to stress. So there might be a lot of work that you don't see at the moment, because modeling work and additional planning work, for example, they go through other consultant in this respect. So and we test the performance anyway of the consultant as well.
Okay, thank you. Well, as long as you're bearing things like that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock. Question, then Councillor Wills, then Curnow.
Yeah, buongiorno, Eros. Did you say that the panel of procurement consultants were WSP?
So we got a professional panel services that has been awarded in 2019. And at that time, there were 2 panels, water and wastewater, that was reflecting the current structure at that time of the council. So water and wastewater, so all the work at 3 waters, call it that. And the 3 water space was a panel with 3 consultants, and there was another panel for open spaces, park and reserve type of work with other 3 consultants. So this panel, so we got 3 consultants for one panel and 3 consultants for the other panel. At that time, WSP won both. So we got WSP, Stantec, an hour in one professional panel, and we got WSP, Stella, and Isthmus in the other one. So we got a mix of consultant in there, a total of 5 for the infrastructure services that we're using, and we can go directly
Right.
within that threshold. Obviously, there's a threshold 50K. I think it's 150K within the panel, and above a certain amount, I think 150K. Don't recall the number right now. We have to go to open market. So these are the procurement rules.
Okay. Well, my question, I'll just leave that aside. Another question is on page 85 of the report, there's mention about consulting on the footprint of the design with farmers. Does, when the stop bank is, who owns the stop bank?
From my understanding is the blend. So at the moment it is a question that we are in the project team. So the stop banks are owned by the individual property, and hence why the resource consent risk, because the resource consent should be in the name of the landowner. So we are working on around that. But that, as you stand at the moment, is privately owned.
Okay, and so here's another final question. I know this is left ball, but through the chair, Mr. Mayor, may I ask it? Is there any viability in the stop bank being between Te Koporu and Dargaville being used as a cycle and pedestrian way? Because I'll explain why I'm asking this, is because I have been asked by many people about if there's possibility of getting a safe cycleway between Te Koporu and Dargaville, because petrol's so expensive. There's you know, people who can't afford to own a car, that that can't walk safely between TK and Dargaville. The road is so dangerous, and from me as an engineering point of view, I can't see how you could put a footpath along Pota Road there, because there's deep drains on either side. So it was suggested, you know, that maybe the stop bank could provide a safe pedestrian cycleway. Is that feasible, or is that completely blue sky space type thinking?
Look, if I can, so from a practical point of view, we need to get diggers on top of the stop banks. So if we can get a digger up there, we can probably take a bicycle. This is just a simple logic. I don't know in terms of, I'm not a transport engineer, so I don't know in terms of safety, if we got a digger there, but the bicycle go off track and go into the river, what is the consequence and who's gonna pay for it? Because there is the question, who own the lands there. So this, I'm just doing some logic here. So from a practicality point of view, yes, definitely. From a legal, safety, logistic point of view, need to be evaluated further.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. There may be an opportunity later in statements for Councillor Curnow to provide information here about this great success of the Waipo Stop Bank Cycleway in Ruawai. Sorry, Councillor De Lavares Woodcock just walked away. That was for your benefit. Sorry. Because
yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did catch that. I'm just, excuse me.
Okay, because it's very, very successful in Ruawai on the top of the stop bank there. So we have a precedent already working in Kaipura, but Councillor Curnow is the expert, having helped put that together. So she'll be able to make a statement on that later as part of her statement, possibly. But for now, we'll go to Councillor Wills for the next question, then Councillor Curnow. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any feedback from the infrastructure group at any reassessment of these sort of projects because of they've changed focus or changed support for what was the original intention or plan? They sound like what I meant, excuse me, is that one of the justifications, as I understood it, for this stock bank was to protect land that would have become valuable because we could have put water past it from that, the dams if they were being piped to Dargaville. And there was opportunity for intensive horticulture between Kaipura and Dargaville. Now that may not be on the agenda when we're looking at other water options for Dargaville, has that it all been referenced by them with regard to this funding?
So, as I was part of the project team, but from the others, not as a council's office or staff, but what originally was discussed was that why the location was because the Kaipura Dam, and the fact that this land was selected as a productive area, I mean, we got a big dam being built to supply this area. And the flood and the stock bank was supposed to protect in this area. So if now the funding has been allocated to this project, if the Kaipura Dam doesn't go ahead, or there is something different, or the water take, I don't know. So there's some changes in that project. Questioning this project may be valid, but it's not within my say authority to say that. So at the moment we're running the project as agreed for with MB and within the program. So what's going on the other project on the other side of the Kaipura is not part of this.
No, sorry, I'll explain. Some of the other, for example, PGF projects, the Poto tar ceiling and the Poto wharf, were interconnected and needed support for both to allow each to continue. I'm just asking that one of the justifications, as I understood, for this project was that it was protecting potentially high value horticulture land. Now that the council has decided to look at other options for our water supply, has MB been made aware of, or not MB, have they been made aware of that, and has it come into consideration? That's my question with this project.
Okay, no, the simple answer is no. We haven't made consideration for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Curnow, question. On mute.
Again. Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to go back up to the WSP issue. So the work that we're giving WSP is the design part, is that right?
There are two components. One is the design, detailed design, and the other one is the resource consent application.
Because in your report, it says that the design component is 77,640.
So that was the preliminary phase, including, wait a second, just double check the report here.
Just in the budget part of the report.
Yeah, in the budget, yeah, 78.
Yes, I'm just a little bit uncertain about the compliance with the procurement policy when it actually says 77,000. Yeah.
No, so I need to check what was the report. I think that is the short form of the planning investigation. So the first phase. So the design, because this report is prior to the award. So that information will probably not be in this report, because we awarded just after the status report has been released, because there is a lead time between this meeting and when the status report is getting is prepared. So I will come back to you, but what we award is within the procurement policies, will be below the 50K package. Everything above need to go with the professional panel competitive.
Perhaps in next month's report, it could just have a bit more detail so that we can be absolutely sure that everything's lining up right. That would be great. Thank you. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you. Statements here will go to Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock as the mover here, and then Councillor Wilson Collins, then Councillor Curnow.
Yes, I would just like to say that this project is, well, it's good that it's getting there and we're seeing some progress. We obviously have the indication of a budget overrun. and I'm gratified to hear the Mayor talk about the possibility and refer to the success of the Waipo Stop Bank walkway, and making the comment that that could be a model that could be lifted and shifted and put down if the farmers are being consulted and engaged with, and they're getting this wonderful taxpayer benefit. It could be expedient for the consultation to, you know, it's hard to find words sometimes, but to mention or not mention, but you know, make that connection between the needs of community of the Kaipura, especially this part of the Kaipura, for safe access between our settlements and our towns of TK and Dargaville. And there is a very real need for people to have alternative modes of transportation. And so if this could benefit that need in our community, that's very interesting. And I'm glad to have the opportunity to put that forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Wilson Collins here as the seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, there's a few factors about this particular item that we've discussed this morning, but yeah, my ears definitely pricked up at the suggestion of a cycle walkway on top of those stop banks, and redoing what has been done in Ruawai and copying their template there. It's actually quite exciting to think between the Mangify shared path and the Kaihu trail and possibly this stop bank project, and I know there's other work with other stakeholders trying to get some cycleways around the district. Kaipura could really have a great little network of cycleways, and that's really fantastic. As Councillor Delavaris Woodcock has already mentioned, it's about the well-being and the health of our communities, as well as alternative modes of transport. So yeah, that's just a really fantastic suggestion. Thank you, Councillor, and I really look forward to seeing something eventuate from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Curnow.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'll start with the stuff that was in the report, which is around, yeah, I'm just concerned around the budget, that this project does have the potential to blow out quite significantly if we're not careful, but it also has the opportunity for us to scale it back and do it in chunks, because yeah, because it could be that we do parts of it in the same way as the stop bank network is maintained across the district, in that it's incrementally improved as we go. So there's potential to manage that, and I encourage staff to look at that. With regards to the stop bank being used as a cycleway, I love that idea, and you know, I was sort of I led the project to get the Ruawai stop bank walkway in place. I just want to share just a few things around the learnings from that one. It worked easily there because that particular part of the stop bank is actually owned by council. So it's not on private land. So that meant that we didn't have to go and consult with anyone else. My experience from that project is that the landowners may not agree to it because they've got issues around health and safety. Some of them graze the stop banks. So there are lots of issues, and if each chunk of the stop bank is owned by a different private owner, it becomes quite complex. So that is something to bear in mind. The other thing that we have to remember is that the stop banks are first and foremost, and this is written into the agreements over the Ruawai stop bank, a flood protection device. So at any point they can be closed for maintenance. At any point, that has to be accepted by the community, that at some points bits of it are going to be closed, and that's just the way it is. It also there are also issues around the fact that a stop bank for a cycle trail has a very different surface than a stop bank for just flood protection. So you need to have some other mechanism, if it's not going to be council, around spraying and keeping the lime surface suitable for cycling. So that would need working on. Yeah, so there are lots of sort of aspects to that, but I think the key thing that would be tricky in this case, because, you know, for 10 years or more, I've had a vision of being able to cycle the stop bank network from Ruawai all the way to Dargaville and all the way down to Kaipura and beyond if you could. But the challenge has always been that private ownership, and it is really, really complex and muddled who owns the stop banks. Some of them are DOC, some of them are council, some of them are privately owned, and it's, yeah. And that actually creates an issue around our overall level of service management for those stop banks. So it's a bigger issue. Anyway, I'll leave that there. But if anyone wants to talk to me more about the Ruawai Stop Bank Walkway project, I'm very happy to share everything we learned on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. A quick comment from me. It would be interesting in this current era for, at the appropriate time, for someone from the project team to have an interesting conversation with Waka Kotahi about their mode shift aspirations here, and a possible additional investment from Waka Kotahi into this stop bank project. So I just share that for what it would be worth. But the wise engineers will know much more than us on this. Are there further statements from elected members here? No further statements. Back to you, Councillor De La Varas Woodcock, for closing comment on the noting of this report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing further to add.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to the Waipo upgrade project update. I'm seeking a mover for this report, please. Councillor Curnow, thank you. And a seconder here. Councillor Vincent, thank you. Eros again. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Take the report as read. So Waipo project. So with this case, we run a procurement process because the work are above the 50K mark. So the preferred one came out to be WSP. And so what we're doing at the moment, we are running the investigation, the geotechnical investigation. So we're mobilizing some drilling machine to start sounding the 2 or 3 locations selected. And we also are looking at, so once the investigation are completed, I think will be the next month or so, that will inform on the viability of the precast structure. So the scope as initially, as the initial scope, I'm going back to the MB, to the initial funding request, was about $1 million for 4 flat gates. Now the budget the budget provided has been much less than what requested. So we're doing this round of scoping again to confirm the budget is enough to achieve what we're trying to do. So what we're trying to do is a flat gate. Has been initially discussed as to be as a precast structure. As you know, the precast is quite heavy. So what we're doing at the moment is to figure out if putting a precast unit in the middle of the canal sits within budget. So the main risk is the foundation. So if we start talking about piling or putting some considerable foundation there, will pretty much be not possible. So this investigation are essentially the foundation again of this project and to figure out what will be the structure that we're going to put in the canal. In parallel, we're also doing the flood modeling, and this work is for assistance of the resource consent application, because obviously this require a resource consent application. So in parallel, we're working on with all the preliminary investigation and also planning assessment. So we're looking what are the consents rules that are required to lodge the consent. So more an exploring phase than actually a design or construction phase due to the budget and the site condition.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor De La Varas Woodcock, question for clarification.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Eros, could you please explain for laywoman how what's the objective of this floodgate? Yeah.
So what we've got is what Waipo. So there are two main canals that they come into the land. Is Canal J and Canal K. I always confuse the two, but there is one that is 17 kilometers long, something like that, and the other one is 2 kilometers that go into the land. So a current, if we want to defend, so going back to the stop banks, so if sea level rise, and so if we want to avoid flooding in the area, we need to defend along the channel. So we need to big stop banks for 70k this way and 70 kilometers that way. Also on both sides of the channel. The floodgate will be the barrier downstream. So with this floodgate here, we will avoid the need for stop banks all up in various forms. So at the moment, what the Waipo scheme are doing there, when they're possible, they pretty much top up the stop banks near the canal. So the benefit of having the floodgate, the immediate benefit of the greatest benefit is avoiding the stop banks. This is a financial matter pretty much. There are also additional benefit because when the river come up, bring a lot of silt. So if you go there, it's full of mud. So that mud will be blocked at the beginning or at the entrance of the floodgate. And the other one is providing fresh water. So when it's rain, the fresh water will fill up the canal and will provide some sort of, so at the moment it's all salt, it's mainly, and apologies, maybe the mayor know better than me, but there is salt water on the canal that cannot be used. So bringing the floodgate will pretty much allow for the fresh water to be stored in the canal. It's not the main purpose. The main purpose again is to defend land, same as the stop banks. So that is kind of the three major benefit and why we're doing this floodgate.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Thank you. And Councillor De Lavaris Woodcock, the questions and those answers have been traversed in earlier presentations on this subject as well. So, and there are maps and plans of the many kilometres to which Eros is talking. But again, I would say perhaps Eros, for the next meeting, there could be a reminder map for everyone of where this proposed stop bank is on G Canal, and not K Canal, and so on and so on. Yeah. So for people to be exactly clear on exactly what we're talking about here.
Okay, so for next one, we will take the action and say we'll prepare. It's not a presentation; it's pretty much a map we can show, so we can talk more. Yeah.
Yeah, and the area of the length of the stop banks, which would never need to be built up again after this project. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you. Thank you, Eros.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Curnow. Statement.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, I actually managed to unmute this time. Thank you. Yeah, no, just good to see this project moving along. It's as we've discussed before, is a project that has been decades in the thinking, and it's finally possible to get the budget to actually at least proceed with part of the project, being the G Canal. So yeah, just keep going with the project. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Vincent, as seconder, your statement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further statements on this report? No further statements. Thank you. Councillor Curnow, would you like a closing statement? You're the only statement that there was. Okay, all right. Thank you. We're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Eros, for your attendance and participation this morning. That brings us to the end of all of the project-specific projects here, and we're just with our final two items of today's agenda. The next of which is the externally funded projects financial overview. And so I'm seeking a mover for the financial overview item here. Councillor Weddy, thank you, and Councillor Vincent seconding that. Thank you. But Eros, you're speaking to this. Kia ora.
Hi, kia ora again. So I take as read the report as usual, and I mean, we can go in detail if you got any specific question, but the finance as usual we've been discussed through each project. So I will probably say any question, specific question to specific project.
So are there any questions here, elected members, for clarification? No questions. Very good. Thank you. Eros, standing down for a moment. Thank you. Councillor Weddy, statement, if you would kick us off. Oh, you're on mute. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, no, I don't think there's any need to go into any further statements. This is just really a summary, and I think it's a very good summary, and I support the continuation of having a nice summary page of all the finances for all the projects. So thank you. It's all self-explanatory.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Vincent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've nothing to add to what Councillor Weddy has said. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further statements from elected members here about the financial overview? No statements. Thank you. Councillor Weddy, a closing statement from you?
Nothing further. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the final item for today, the externally funded projects program overview. I'm happy to move this, and I'm seeking a seconder here. Councillor Curnow, thank you. So Eros again. Kia ora.
Okay, so as discussed, the only change in the program, so it's not like a change. So discussion has been done last week with MB for the Kaipura, Waipo, and Poto regarding the program. So the Kaipura and Waipo, for those two projects, the start date, this construction start date hasn't changed, but we have done change for the enabling work. So we moved the enabling work together with the construction to give us some more room to scope in this project. So we're starting one unique tranche of work rather than just starting with enablers and construction. This is not reflected yet in this program. So next, because the delay between when we do the report and this meeting, but so there is no substantial change to the overall program. Apart from those two, the rest is again, it's been discussed as part of each individual project. So, question.
Thank you. Councillor Curnow, question for clarification.
Sorry, thank you, Mayor. Just one quick question. According to this, by July, the Kaihu Valley Trail will be 50% complete. Is that still realistic?
So I will. The personal answer is probably no. I will need to talk with Greg because this is it's more NTA territory. So I will liaise with Greg and so I take your point, and I will talk to Greg for next meeting. If that milestone is not realistic, that it probably is not, we'll put a realistic figure against that. But I can't.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
So.
Thank you. Are there further questions for clarification? No further questions. Thank you. Thank you, Eros.
Thank
And,
you.
and thank you again for your attendance and support today. A quick statement from me is, again, it's wonderful to see this summarized regarding the hot zones for action of what is happening with the council. We can see we're in a very busy period this side of the winter. And then there's the Poto Wharf option, and then stop banks beyond that. You can see the pattern coming through. We're seeing opening events towards the end, the Christmas period, and definitely there is a lot going on for the council. It reminds me, looking at this chart, reminds me of the good thinking that we had to put together this committee and for the management and oversight of all of these external projects, because it still remains an extraordinary amount of work that this small council is taking on and in this fascinating time. So congratulations everyone for the work that's being done here and the neat and tidy presentation of these projects that we see here. So thank you. That's it from me there. Deputy Mayor Curnow.
Nothing to add. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any further statements here on the program overview? No further statements and no closing statement from me. So thank you. So we're putting this to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hand and say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. So that report is duly noted. Thank you, everyone. So that brings us to the end of today's externally funded projects committee meeting of Kaipura District Council in the month of May, and today's the 11th of May. So we're in a very interesting moment with these projects. It's a fascinating, busy time here, and all of the work that you've seen here today reflects that. In 2 days' time, we have the opening of the next of our projects, which is the Waipoa River Road. Last week was the opening of Poto Road. And so here's to Waipoa River Road and the safe opening of it, and all the people who travel on that road forever and ever. So at that point, I'm going to close today's meeting with a karakia, thanking everyone for your attendance and participation here, and looking forward to the next steps. So karakia. Ke tau ngā manaakitanga a te mea nāro, ki runga ki taina a tātou kia mahia, te hua makihikihi, ki e toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te aroha, toi te reo Māori, ti hei Māori ora. Kia pai tō rā, kia pai tō ahi. Good afternoon.